Horror. Shawk and Horrah. We're here for the Shawk and Horrah, Mazza. Welcome in, everybody. Thanks for following us over from the Canton stream. We're going to do part 2 tonight, and I know I had to bring Mazza over here. You did a lot of lives last night, so you were probably going there. So we did part 1 last night.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
this is
2
like
lives?
my 5th live show of the week. 2 lives, 2 lives yesterday, and 2 lives today, if you count both your shows. So.
Oh, geez, you're burning up the interwebs.
Oh, yeah.
But we're gonna get into Shawk and Horrah. But before I do that, I know I was teasing this in the last stream. I have some Brian Higgins news, and I have to thank the lucky, the great subscriber that reached out to me and said, "Hey, have you seen this?" I said, "No." You know what is it? He started to explain to me that there was a video that was released on a channel called the Sons of Liberty podcast. And he said, he's like, I'm listening to it. And all of a sudden, Brian Higgins' name comes up. And he says, my ears perk up. And he starts putting 2 to 2 together. So essentially what this is Sons of Liberty, I believe, is they talk about like gun laws and guns on their channel. And Toby Leary owns Cape Cod Gun Works. It's the largest store in Massachusetts, and was talking about a situation when Brian Higgins came into his gun store and essentially was trying to take like paperwork from this guy that he had no reason being involved in. And essentially the owner of the store called their lawyer, and the lawyer basically tells Brian Higgins to go piss off. But we'll play this segment, and I actually reached out to the young men that own this channel. I asked them if I could talk about it, and they said, absolutely, please. So if anybody's interested in firearms or firearms laws, I would encourage you all to go over and subscribe to the Sons of Liberty. And by the way, this is the setup that they have is like what I want, and I love all the 3 camera positions that they get going. But anyway, let's listen here, and Toby's going to tell the story of Brian Higgins.
I don't even care.
All right, so
this is worth it. This is crazy.
I had an ATF agent and so the guys who do those inspections they're called IOIs. They're investigative officers and inspectors, right?
I'm just curious.
Let me just give context to what's going to happen here. Essentially, Brian Higgins showed up and was trying to check documentations. I guess there was a young lady that had come in. She had take all her safety courses. She was interested in purchasing a firearm. And I think someone was like with her there. And Brian Higgins thought it was called, I think they call them a straw purchase, where someone will actually go in, buy a gun, and then hand it to someone. And then they take the gun. And that was not the case. And you're going to hear about it here.
Do they feel bad? Like, are they ever like just
imagine being
like
that
sorry
guy?
about
Yeah.
this? But we have
Kinda,
to?
yeah, they actually are.
Okay.
Those ATF agents are like, we're just doing our job. We've got to make sure this gun lines up with this serial number in this book and this 4473 to this guy, and his license is correct and his address was right and his signature's on the page, and you have your, employee signature too, and all that, right? And again, they can't even keep.
Yeah, I'm going to get there, Scott. Don't worry.
Themselves,
I'm
but
getting
they
there.
require us to, and we do.
I have the switcher. I just need to hook it up.
So they do the inspections.
And then I need a producer.
Then they write up
exactly. Yeah.
Now, I'll
they
pay you
send that to your
$50 to come
director, and then the director determines
Right. Yeah.
action will be taken. A letter, a warning conference, or a revocation hearing. And so that happens once a year.
A little bit, but he does talk about.
And then the other side of it is enforcement. So there's the ATF enforcement side, which are actively doing investigations into the biker gang or the Crips and the Bloods with guns, or the nefarious people out there that legitimately do evil with guns. But
that is,
they also wear a big bat. And so funny story is we had an investigation going on a few years ago. It was actually a pretty well-known investigation. It was in the newspapers of a guy who was in the police academy to become a cop, who purchased a Glock pistol from our store and from another store by showing a police ID and signing our law enforcement affidavit that he had powers of arrest. And turns out he was just a dispatcher. And so we can't sell Glock pistols, the number one selling handgun in America, to regular citizens because the Attorney General deemed them too dangerous. So that whole list of guns I told you about, the Attorney General's regulations, they determined that Glock pistols do not meet the Attorney General's regulations. But then they exempted police departments and police from the Attorney General's regulations. So if that doesn't stink of hypocrisy, I don't know what does, because they're saying it's too unsafe for you to own, but yet we're going to give them to cops in their official duties, and also they can own them personally. But if they're that unsafe, why do we want to give them to cops? Well, because they're really not unsafe. We just don't trust you with the most popular handgun in America, and this is our way of doing a backdoor gun ban. So you can't buy Glocks, but you can as a cop. So this guy who's going through the police academy flashed his thing, and when he's in the police academy, the police chief looks at him and says, "Hey, that looks like a new Glock. Where'd you get that?" "Oh, I got it at Cape Gunworks."
Here we go.
"What? You can't do that. You can't buy that. You're not a sworn officer yet." So this police chief launches an investigation
Here we go.
charges the kid with unlawful possession of a firearm for straw purchase stuff, and gets the
I don't know,
ATF
Jody.
involved.
Wow.
So the ATF comes down to us to get the form, the 4473. He shows us his credentials. And some of you might know who this ATF agent is if you watched a very high profile trial that just took place in Massachusetts. So the agent's name was Brian Higgins. And so he's in our shop to get this form, and he's watching us conduct business, and he sees a girl at the counter buying a gun. She's doing her paperwork, doing all that. And her boyfriend walks in and, whispers in her ear, and she points over there, and then he walks away. And this guy's observing this whole thing. And then she finally gets her gun and she leaves. And he says, "I need to see that 4473. And I'm like, I've never been in this position before. I don't just feel comfortable turning over my customers' information to law enforcement agencies just because they ask for it.
Yeah. You need a warrant.
So I'm like, yeah, I think there's a warrant and a or a subpoena at the very least, that there's some ongoing investigation. So I bring the form into my general manager, and I go in the other room and I ask Brendan, my business partner, I said, "Do we have to give federal forms to the ATF upon demand?" And he goes, "I don't think so, but let me call our lawyer." We have a lawyer that
so good.
is on call about this type of stuff, especially interactions with the ATF. So he calls him, and this guy used to be one of the directors of the Boston field office of the ATF.
I'm going to pause just here for a second. This guy is so smart. He didn't fold. He went in and asked appropriate questions, because usually, people would just get scared, Maz, and go, "Oh, here's the paperwork. Here, take it." This guy said, "No, wait a minute. I don't have to give a law enforcement agent someone's address and paper. They have no probable cause here."
Yeah.
So he went in, he confirmed it with like he said, his GM, and essentially, you're going to hear the anecdote to this story here. But I think this probably was, Jody's asking, when was this? This was probably earlier in his career, because I think he owns his own place now. So this may be when he was working for someone. But it's an interesting story. Here's the anecdotes coming up here. It's pretty good.
Yeah. So he knows his stuff, right? So he calls him, and meanwhile, while we're off to the side talking, this ATF agent goes into my manager's office and says, "I need to see that form." So my manager doesn't know any better, and he hands it over, and he's taking pictures of it and writing down information off this form. And then he walks back out. I come out, and Brendan is on the phone with the lawyer, and the lawyer says, and I'll keep it a G rating here, but he says, "Tell him to go bleep himself." And so Brendan comes out and says, "Yeah, we're not going to give you that information. I'm sorry. Come back with a warrant or a subpoena or something like that, and we'll be glad to oblige. But we don't feel comfortable giving out confidential information just on a fishing expedition by you." And he goes, "What?" He hits the moon. "No one has ever denied me that form. And that's ATF property. Those forms are ATF property." And we're like, "No, they're actually not. We have to retain them as records for 20 years, forever." And he's like, nope, that's my property. I can inspect them whenever I want. I want to see that now. And by the way, I already looked at it in your manager's office, so I already got what I need, but you don't tell me no. He was really upset.
So he told you that he already got it?
Yeah, he told us that he already got it. I'm like, well, I didn't give you permission or authorize you to do that. And, you know, frankly, I think you're overstepping your bounds here. And we're very pro-police. We'll help any investigation, but I believe you're on a fishing expedition and you just don't like the color of the skin or what that person looked like who's at the counter buying a gun. Frankly, that's what I think happened here. And he goes, you don't know why I'm asking for it. And I said, well, I'm just calling it like I see it. And we internally knew this wasn't a straw purchase. If he was making the argument that she was buying the gun for the boyfriend or something like that, that's what he was implying. And I said, nope, that's not the situation. This girl has been in multiple times, has gone out on the range with an instructor to select a handgun that fits her hand, that one she likes, that, you know, meets the requirements that she has. She's, you know, test fired it. She's narrowed it down and then ultimately made a selection. And today is the day she's picking it up. This is not a straw purchase. And so he's like, well, I'm not going to talk to you about what an ongoing investigation. So he gets back to his office and his director just got reamed out by my lawyer who used to work for that office. And he basically tells him, you got to make this right. You got to cover your butt because you're exposed now. You're out there in the wind without any legal protection because you're, you know, demanding this. And so he goes and assembles a grand jury to investigate this girl.
This is unreal.
For a straw purchase. And comes back to us with a subpoena on a Saturday or Sunday morning. I can't remember what day it was. When we have a instructor here from New York to teach a class to like 14 people. People have driven from like Connecticut and Rhode Island and all over Massachusetts to be in this class. And he shows up with like 8 police cars and he walks in and he disarms everyone in the store. Like, you can't be in the store with me with a gun. I want your gun. And like, so my employees are kind of like, what do I do? And so he's like, you got to, you know, unload your gun and I'll hold on to it while you're in the store. And by the way, I want everyone out anyway. You can't be in the building with me at the same time while I'm conducting my investigation. And he has a subpoena for the hard drive of our video camera surveillance system. So he can sit there and watch the world go by in 30-second clips, you know, around that day. But he doesn't just ask for the clips for that day. He takes the whole server out of the building.
Wow.
Wow.
This could have been done by just him walking in that one closet, which is like a 4x6 closet, but he shut down the entire operation of the building, you know, and with like 8 cruisers parked out front. So it looks like we're,
Can you pause
you
this for
know,
one
selling
second?
machines.
Yeah, we can.
When was this filmed? This interview filmed?
This got dropped yesterday.
Oh, okay.
So I'm guessing, and I know everybody's asking, when was this? When's that? I don't know when the timeline was. There's really no context to it. But he said, I talked to my general manager. He owns a store, so I'm thinking this is probably a little earlier in his gun career, maybe when he worked for someone. But he, you know, this guy's the owner, and he said I talked to my GM, so I'm thinking this is probably a little earlier in his career. But it's interesting. You have power trip. You have not the fact of not wanting to be denied. We've seen a temper. It's interesting.
Yeah. All characteristics that are very much in play in the Karen Reed, John O'Keefe case.
Yeah. Very, very interesting.
Yep.
I'll try to get some more background on it. I'll reach out to the young men that I reached out today to play this video. They were very kind. Said, please play it. And if you can get people to subscribe to their channel, that would be great. And see if I can get a little bit more context on it. And maybe I'll reach out to Mr. Leary and see if I can get him up here and explain the situation in depth. That would be really great. All right, we'll listen to this. We'll end this, and we'll go to Jennifer McCabe.
Guns, kids out the back door, and so
that's great.
All that to really just throw his weight around and peacock out and say, "I'm the guy. You don't ever tell me no. Don't you ever forget it." And so he did that to cover his butt because and then once they found out, oh yeah, it wasn't a straw purchase, they just closed the investigation and went on as business as usual. So it was crazy. But
How do you not sue them over that?
Amy, thank
Well,
you.
Because technically he got a subpoena, so technically it was
right.
legal.
Yeah, technically it was. And frankly, it was a small price to pay for a cool story, if you ask me. Like,
For sure.
you know what I mean? Like, not that I would ever want to go
No.
through that again,
Yeah.
but it just shows the level of tyranny that'll happen. And that's what makes me a little nervous about saying there's not any cops that'll enforce this, because cops will do things that aren't constitutional.
Yep.
And frankly, that makes me a little nervous.
Well,
Just
and-
following orders,
And it's dangerous too, because what happens when you get a gun store or somebody who's not as willing to go along with the ATF? Like, what if somebody's like, no, actually, like, this is unconstitutional. Not that I'm not saying, I don't know how many of those. I'm sure there's some people who are willing to take a stand at that level. And it's like, now you're going to have you could have a standoff at some level. And it's like, that's dangerous. Like that, people could lose lives. You could have like a Waco situation or things like that.
The reason Gun Owners Action League called this bill the Lawful Gun Owner Imprisonment Act is the scenario.
I'm not going to get into the laws here, but
Okay.
I just wanted to play that story about Higgins. If anybody's interested in the video, I'll drop it in the chat. And it starts at about, the conversation about Higgins starts at 52:30 in that video. So I just find it interesting. And I think I'm going to reach out to Mr. Leary, see if I can get him on the show and have him talk a little bit more in depth and get some some context a little bit more behind that encounter. Because I find those traits, attitude, pushback, being denied, flipping out. Gee, it's just a lot of that stuff we heard in the Canton scenario. So, all right, Maz, you ready? We're gonna
One
beat
question. What was the time frame on that at the big when that portion of the video started? 52:30. I'm gonna drop it in that video. All right, the comments. All right, thank you.
Yeah. And I want to just make sure that I call out their channel. It's the Sons of Liberty. And if you all are interested in, I guess, firearms and firearms laws, they talk about that on their podcast. Go sub up with them. They seem like really nice young guys, and they gave me the permission to play that video. I didn't want to just play it. I reached out and said, hey, do you mind? They said, no, absolutely. So good stuff there. All right, let's beat the dead horse. Let's play Jennifer McCabe. We're going to start where I left off the other night, just before Shawk Horrah. All right, Maz, here we go.
Everyone was permitted to discuss the circumstances of the evening before going into the early morning hours with each other with no police there, correct?
I sat with my family in Shawk Horrah.
Sounds a little rehearsed.
I have to just do this because it was pretty funny last night when I was doing it. Ready?
Yeah.
Right. Now,
Correct.
And everyone was permitted to discuss the circumstances
Horrah.
I missed it.
evening before going into the
Everybody
early
sounds all
morning
scissored out.
hours with each other.
Oh
with
gosh,
no
this is
police
painful. I
there.
went too bad.
Correct?
I sat with my family in Shawk Horrah.
Were you allowed to discuss the circumstances of the night before going into the early morning hours amongst
go.
yourselves without
I had to
police
do it.
presence? Yes or no?
There was no reason for us to be allowed or not allowed. We did nothing wrong.
Understand my question? Did you get it?
Yes, I understand your question.
Can you answer it, yes or no? Were you allowed, that group of folks,
Mhm.
were you allowed to discuss the case without a police presence?
Yes.
Okay. So you listened during the
She's seething.
friends
Oh,
and
God.
family gathering. You listened to what Brian Albert had to say, correct?
He didn't really say much.
He was able to listen to what you had to say.
Look
Again,
at that face.
you're creating a scene that didn't happen.
Anything, Ms. McCabe. I'm asking some questions that you don't seem to want to answer.
Objection, Your Honor.
All right, so let's ask a question and let's get an answer. Okay.
Yes or no? Was Brian Albert there within earshot and you discussed your version of what had happened?
I didn't discuss much. I sat there in shock and horror, so I spoke very little, to be honest with you.
Shock and horror. When you did speak, he could hear.
Yes.
And Nicole could hear.
Yes.
And Chris Albert could hear.
Chris came much later.
And your husband, Matt McCabe, he could hear.
Yes.
Okay. And then when Chris is talking about what happened at Waterfall, you could hear and Brian could hear. In other words, everybody could hear everybody.
Chris came much later. When Chris came, I was almost about to leave.
I'm guessing that the topic of what had happened was still on everybody's mind.
Everybody was trying to figure out what had happened.
And you're discussing it.
Get the story straight.
That's my point.
With my sister and my brother-in-law and my husband. Correct.
Pause for just a moment.
Yeah.
If it's like anything with human psychology. If you're innocent, you have nothing to hide.
Yeah.
There should be no reason why you shouldn't be absolutely calm and relaxed while you're taking on all these questions. You shouldn't be frustrated at all. You should be able to say, Attorney Jackson, I'm sorry, but that's not how it happened. I can tell you how it happened. And it's just it's this tension. It's this tension that you can cut, with a knife. And that's why so many people out there that weren't familiar with this case, when they saw her on the stand, absolutely began to believe almost immediately as they were watching this why they felt that Karen Read was innocent. Well, that's why so many people have kind of jumped on the free Karen Read movement bandwagon. I mean that not a negative thing, bandwagon, but the bandwagon. Just basically everybody's kind of riding along now with this because they see this kind of behavior, and it plays in the favor of Karen when you see this kind of behavior.
And why did they all have to get together and talk about what happens?
Right. Yeah.
How when are witnesses ever allowed to do that? And I asked Todd McGee that the other night when he's in here. When is witnesses ever allowed? He said it does not happen. It doesn't happen. It should not have happened.
Yep.
That's not proper investigation. All right, Maz, here we go.
Left,
Shock and horror.
You said you were about to leave. Before you left, another Albert came over to the house, correct?
I don't recall seeing him.
Him.
Kevin Albert.
How'd you know I was talking about Kevin Albert?
Because you said another Albert came over, and I was
6 brothers.
I was told later it was Kevin.
Yeah.
So you believe that Kevin was not there when you were still there?
I was in a state of shock. He may have walked in.
Do you remember?
I don't remember it. No.
He could have been.
He could have been, absolutely.
And you knew he was a Canton police officer.
Yes.
You had already gotten a call from Michael Proctor, hadn't you?
Yes.
He told you he wanted to speak with you.
Correct.
So you knew at that point that the Massachusetts State Police troopers had taken over the investigation of the case, correct?
Correct.
Did Michael Proctor tell you that the Canton Police Department had been recused from the case?
Objection.
Sustained.
Let me ask it a different way. Did you have knowledge in any way, shape, form, or fashion at that point that Canton Police Department was not supposed to be involved in the case?
Objection.
Sustained.
Objection.
Speaking of Trooper Proctor, when you first interviewed with him, that was January 29th, 2022. We've already discussed that a little bit today, correct?
Correct.
And he was taking notes while you were interviewing with him. Is that right?
I believe so.
You mentioned on Friday your observations of the taillight that day. Is that right?
Correct.
You told Mr. Lally that you indicated that the taillight looked, when you saw it, just like the photograph that he showed you, correct?
I told him it was hard to make out and with the snow on it, but it looked in the picture that he showed.
He showed you a second photo, a close-up, basically, of the SUV and a Sally port. Is that right?
Yes.
And you said, yeah, that's the condition of the taillight, correct?
Yes.
You also told Trooper Proctor about your observations of the taillight on that same day, the 29th, right?
Correct.
That's literally the same day that you saw the taillight, correct?
Correct.
Just a few hours later. Is that right?
Correct.
Let's get to this really quick. Fancy RPG, my Canadian friends checking in tonight. Thank you. Says my mom has a similar large and shady Catholic family as the Alberts, and she's the only one to move across the country and wash her hands of that crap. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for the $5 Canadian.
That day was that you, quote, saw a crack in it, end quote, correct?
I told him that the taillight was cracked.
Matter of fact, the words that you used were that you saw, and I'm not fighting you on those words. You saw that it was cracked. You actually said, I saw a crack in it, correct?
That's what he said. I said, I'm telling you, I said the taillight was cracked.
This is another example of him screwing up your words, correct?
You'd have to ask Trooper Proctor.
So I'm asking you, did you say, I saw a crack in it?
I said the taillight was cracked.
So you didn't say, I saw a crack in it, right?
I said the taillight was cracked.
God.
The photograph that you were shown, with the court's permission, it's exhibit 92, I believe, from Friday.
Okay.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
You see that photograph? You were shown this photograph on Friday. Does that look like, does it has a crack in it?
It's cracked. Yes.
It's actually completely missing. isn't
Yeah. And I believe in one of the reports, one of the many reports, it will say that I said it was cracked and missing pieces.
Right. Does that look like it's cracked and missing pieces, or does that look like the entirety of the taillight is basically gone?
Again, in that picture, there are the red pieces. There are some of it still there. So it's cracked and missing. In a state of shock, that was my description.
Got it. So in a state of shock, you said there was a crack in it.
No,
Hours after,
I said it was cracked. I never said there was a crack in it.
so if Trooper Proctor wrote that down, that would be an example of him getting your words wrong yet again.
Objection.
That's been answered. Let's move along, please.
Let's move on.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay.
Would everybody like butter and syrup with their French toast?
Would you like a piece of bacon?
Yeah.
I want to get back to January
Would you look
29th,
at
that interview with Trooper Proctor. After this interview with Michael Lank, you eventually made your way back to your house. Is that right?
Yes.
You went with your husband, Matt,
Yes.
and you knew that Trooper Proctor was going to show up and interview you and Matt, Mr. McCabe, correct?
On the phone, he wanted to speak with me.
Is that a yes?
So I wasn't aware. He asked to speak with me. I wasn't aware if he was going to speak with Matt.
Okay. You were at least aware that you were going to be interviewed.
Correct.
You told Brian Albert that Trooper Proctor was planning on interviewing you as well.
Correct.
Before Trooper Proctor showed up to conduct that interview at your house, Brian Albert actually showed up at your house, correct?
Correct.
Why?
So Brian Albert made sure that he was in your home before Trooper Proctor made it to your house, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Got to sustain that one. Or maybe to the form of questioning. Yeah. Oh,
Brian
that's
Albert was in your home before Trooper Proctor was in your home. Is that right?
I am not sure who arrived first.
But he was there when you were interviewed, wasn't he?
He was upstairs, yes.
And you believe
he was
of course,
in the house.
He
Yeah.
didn't hear anything about what was going to happen, right? He didn't hear
100.
anything about the interview,
No, I don't think he could hear it from where he was.
but you knew he was just a few feet away.
I knew he was up in my bedroom.
We've talked a little bit about your call records, and I want to pivot for a second and ask you about those call records. This is
Look at that
exhibit
stare
90.
right there.
Oh yeah. She's
Don't have any approach?
Yes.
That how dare you?
oh
Madam
yeah.
Court reporter.
Thank you.
Do you
Take your
recognize that
time.
document?
I do, yes.
You were shown this document last week, is that right?
Correct.
This is a forensic extraction report of John O'Keefe's cell phone that you were shown on Friday, right?
Correct.
you acknowledge that it's an accurate report of calls found on John's phone between you and him. Is that right?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, and this shows the calls that you made to John's phone or you received from John's phone on or between or at or between 12:14 a.m. and 12:50 a.m. I want to direct your attention to those time frames, correct?
Correct.
All right, I want to start at the bottom, and it may go in reverse chronological order.
Okay.
I think it does. At 12:14, it shows that you called John O'Keefe and that call was answered. Is that right?
Yeah, correct.
At 12:18 a.m., it shows that John O'Keefe called your phone and that was answered as well.
Correct.
And then at 12:29 a.m., you also called John O'Keefe's phone and y'all had a short conversation as well. Is that right?
No.
That the record shows, I think it shows,
Marissa Tomei moment. That's wrong.
unknown, correct?
Trying to
In
get
terms
a
of whether it
story
was missed
straight.
or answered?
How do I lie?
Yeah.
Excuse me, can you repeat that?
Sure. The 12:29. I want to concentrate on the 12:29 a.m.
Is it this stage she does?
Okay.
That one in the
I think
celebrate
it's
extraction.
Might be.
It shows in terms of whether the call was answered or not. The status is unknown, correct? It's on the last page,
Yeah,
second row from the top.
at 12:29. Unknown, yes.
Unknown. However, you've already acknowledged that y'all did have a short conversation on that 2:29
No,
call, correct?
we didn't speak at 2:29. We spoke at 12:14 and we spoke at 12:18. We never spoke at 12:29.
So you're indicating that the 12:29 call was either missed or otherwise went to voicemail, something.
The 12:29, yes.
Okay. I want to show you a document. Well, let me ask it this way. According to this, there were
Trying to
6
keep it
more
straight.
calls
See,
between your phone and John O'Keefe's phone.
Correct.
Count it, correct? 1, 2, 3.
She's looking at the thing like it's a Rubik's Cube.
no.
And
Well,
that's before.
You know, in my opinion, she's trying to keep it straight.
Yeah.
He's asking her a bunch of questions. So she's filtering 2 pieces of information here. And then her brain is working and going, all right, how do I keep this straight? And he's asking, just keeps talking to throw her off.
Yeah.
So she, you know,
Right.
that's why she's trying to visualize and memorize here.
Or that's
Right.
up to
Good
12:50
analysis. I like it, Brian.
a.m.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Great analysis. I should say.
Correct.
Thank you.
I'd like to show you another
See,
document.
that's why she keeps looking at the document.
Sorry,
Yeah.
if I could
And she won't
approach
look up.
briefly.
She's going, all right, how do I spin this? See, and she's like, fuck.
Taking forever. That was one of the most notable things about this.
Look at her. How do I get this clear? She's pulling a memory.
This is like claiming you know all the answers to the test because you studied for 2
Yeah.
weeks. Now all of a sudden you need to look at your book every 10 seconds for every single question.
Madam Court reporter with the pink on. I like it.
Yep.
Well,
May I?
maybe
Yes.
a little signal there, you think?
Yeah,
Thank
right.
you.
Yeah.
I'll take, so we don't get them mixed up, I'll take exhibit 90 back.
Okay. Thank you.
How's the cat?
He's sleeping right now.
Yeah.
I want to show
Good
you
job,
one
Cole.
more document that you weren't shown on Friday. Do you recognize this one?
No.
Okay. If you look where it indicates on the left column, I'm just putting my thumb here, the
Okay.
left column, the MSISD
Yep. You're right, Scott.
user,
That's
there's
exactly
a
what
number
Yep.
that ends there.
You're right. Exactly what I was getting at. It's like,
0142, sorry, 0142.
You want me to approach?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm going to answer this question before we approach.
I have no idea what we're approaching about this document.
Yes.
Why don't we just go up there?
Sure.
May I have that, please? I know you need to.
Lally wanted her to give her time to reset.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
Reset because she's
Yep.
being spun here. All right. For the
Yep.
interest of time, we'll speed up here.
I just double click L to go forward.
Yep.
Okay, good. Oh, you got that down now, Brian?
Oh, I got it down now.
Oh, good. I noticed I was watching a Galera one day. I noticed he was skipping ahead like this. I'm like, there's got to be some way. So I Googled it, and they're like J and L,
Is Nick Rocco?
and then K to pause.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's Jenna and Nick right there.
Nick right there.
Nick, I told Nick, I said, you always look so smooth, bro. The hair was always looking good. You
He's a
got the nice
barber.
clothing. Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is. Yeah. He always looks smooth.
Yeah, he does.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Listen, I just want to say this to the audience. I really appreciate y'all coming in and rewatching this testimony. I listened to the audience, and this it's been popular. So I think, I may continue to do some of these. We'll go through them. Maz, like I said, anytime you're welcome to come up and you want to hang out here. But the audience has been wanting to do this, so I think it's been pretty good. I know we joked about it the other night, kind of beating the dead horse, but people really want to go over this again, and it's a good opportunity, and we have the time to do it now, so why not, right? All right.
If you look on the left column, Ms. McCabe,
Yes.
you'll see something that says Apple ID.
If you're in the house and you were
Yes.
there,
To the right of it,
then you
You
should pretty
recognize-
much know most of this stuff.
Well, that's
I
what I mean. You always got to go back and look at
Yeah.
can you show me in the document? Can you show me? Well, why? I mean, you were there. You should know your story.
Yeah.
You know what happened. We were talking about this the other night too. And I thought, one of two things. The whole text messaging, that whole event when she was texting John, looking out the window, are you here? What are you doing? You coming in, to that certain effect. I thought, one, John was most likely already inside the house at that point, and they're texting to cover up. And I'm saying to myself, well, who would have made her do that? I think the two major shot callers and all that was Brian Higgins and Brian Albert. Hey, look, you're involved in this now. This is what we need you to do. We need you to start manufacturing these texts to say, hey, you here, you coming, but by that time, John's already in the house. John's that the fight had already probably been on, and he was disabled at that point, and this is part of the cover up. But I'm telling you, they were the shot callers, and that's how she got involved in this.
That makes perfect sense. It's just a way of presuming innocence. Well, if we're texting, all night long we texted, where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Because he never came in the house, and lo and behold, there he was on the front lawn. We never knew. We actually looked right out and saw a bunch of vehicles, but in no time saw anybody, even though what's her name there, Nagel. Was it Julia Nagel happened to see some kind of a blob on the front of the yard. It's interesting.
The alligator. Remember the field of vision? We did that. That was actually last night. But he, it was funny. He made perfect sense. He said, you looked out the window all the time. You got into a car and drove away, and you're going to tell me that you didn't look and, in field of vision. And I was saying to the audience last night, if I'm just looking at my camera, I see two microphones, I see lights, I see camera, I see a desk, I see couch. It's, and she said, oh no, I didn't see it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Recognize that unredacted portion. I don't want you to read it out or anything. You recognize that?
Yes.
Whose Apple ID is that?
That's mine.
Okay. If you look, 6 lines below that, there's a full phone number. Again, don't read the phone number out. Just tell me if you recognize it.
I do.
Whose is that?
That's mine.
Okay. May I vote, John?
Yes.
I'll take the unredacted copy back.
Okay.
So we don't get it mixed up. Does this appear to be Celebrite extraction of your phone records, your Apple ID?
Uh-oh. Here we go.
Yes.
Okay. And you recognize this, without telling me what it is, you recognize that phone number as your phone number back at the time and the Apple ID back at the time.
Yes.
Associated with the phone that you then turned in to law enforcement, correct?
Correct.
Okay. You've just looked at the extraction report for John O'Keefe's phone, and you saw those calls between your phone and John O'Keefe's phone after going from 12:14 after that all the way up to 12:50, correct?
Correct.
Take a look at the last couple of pages, page 3 and 4 of your own cell phone extraction report. And tell me if you see a single call listed between you and John O'Keefe for
Here we
January
go.
29th between 12:14 and 12:50.
She's like horrified right now. Nope, because it's not there on the document.
Yeah.
Look at her. Look at, she's like, where is it? I gotta look.
Right. She looks like she's trying to sort through the Bible, trying to figure out which chapter and verse that she needs to read.
Look at her looking. She can't find it because you know why? It ain't there. How do I?
She's unfamiliar with all the information.
There are calls to a number that I'm assuming is John.
What
I'm
time?
just not sure. I see a call at, wait a minute. This report has times everywhere.
Right. It's chronological except for the calls that were deleted. You see a call at 5:52 to John O'Keefe's phone.
I see a call at 5:52, yes.
But there's not a single call before 5:52 a.m. between 12:14 and 12:50 a.m.
It's like,
Is that right?
oh boy.
Not one.
Uh-oh, he's right. She's trying to figure it out. How am I going to skip
This it's very hard to this report
Yeah,
time-wise.
yeah.
You can look at every single time on the report. There's not that many.
There's those sirens. It's John.
I'm just trying to say that it goes from 7:21 to 5:52 to 7:33 to 7:49. There's no order. They're out of order.
I understand that.
It doesn't matter.
Okay, but if you look at every one of the entries, there's not a single entry for 12:14, 12:18, or any of the subsequent 12:29, any of the subsequent phone calls that are all shown on John O'Keefe's phone extraction. Would you agree with that?
Correct.
May I approach?
Yes.
Thank you. Your Honor, I would move for the admission of NN as an exhibit.
Okay, is there an objection?
No, Your Honor.
May I inquire, Your Honor? Yes. Fact of the matter is, according to those Celebrite records and that extraction from your own phone, every one of the calls that you made to John O'Keefe's phone between 12:29 and, I'm sorry, between 12:14 and 12:50 a.m. was deleted and unrecovered, correct?
I didn't understand that report, and I'm not an expert.
When you compare the two, you saw a bunch of calls on John O'Keefe's phone, right? You know, he couldn't have deleted them. He passed away, right?
Correct.
You saw your cell phone extraction, which is the handshake for John O'Keefe's phone, and all of your calls are missing, right?
Objection.
Can you answer that question?
I'm
No.
confused. That
No.
paper, I don't understand it. It was vague. There were numbers. There were
Yeah.
calls everywhere. There was a
This is
number
weird.
of missing calls.
This is when you get up there, Lally's saying, just say you're confused about it. He's going to ask you about
Right.
it. Just say you can. It's all out of order. It's out of
Right.
order. I don't
Right.
understand it. And he's like, look, I mean, literally, those times are just not listed on there. You see everything else, it's not listed. So it didn't happen.
One
A
second.
bunch of missing calls, right? You didn't see any of the calls that were reflected on John O'Keefe's phone. Is that right? Yes or no? They're not there.
A lot of calls are missing. I'm not really even sure what's there because the numbers are all, it's all redacted.
So you were not seeing any redacted calls, Ms.
The page you just had in front of me was redacted.
It's now an exhibit.
It's now exhibit. Your personal information was redacted. None of the calls were redacted now.
The number,
Christine, thank you so much. $9. Did Jen have to go outside to smoke her cigarettes? Wouldn't you hear John's phone ringing? Even she claims she did not see the body. Yeah, that would be a good thought. Yeah, if you're outside, you would hear a phone ring. Well, I don't know. Depends. You know, we don't know if he had it on vibrate. You know, I know I walk around with my phone on vibrate all the time too. So I'm not too sure, but it is a good point though.
numbers. I don't know people's phone numbers. I just have them as contacts.
Ms. McCabe, you just said a second ago, and we can do this all day long, or we can just make it simple. The fact of the matter is that report did not show any of the calls that John O'Keefe's phone report showed, correct? From 12:14 to 12:50.
I believe there was one on there.
5:52. That's the next morning, ma'am. Right?
Were there other calls in that time period on the Celebrate?
You just said there weren't. You just looked at them.
I've told you that Celebrate report was extremely hard to read.
Right.
Mhm.
Fact is, there are no calls on your own phone extraction between you and John O'Keefe
There you
between
go.
12:14 and 12:50. Would you just agree with that, at least on that report?
It's like, check it
Objection,
out.
Your Honor.
Sustained.
The fact is that you deleted your call records before you turned your phone in, didn't you, Ms. McCabe? That's what that report shows.
Absolutely not.
You sanitized your phone because you didn't want the police to know who you had been calling or the fact that you had been calling John O'Keefe's phone incessantly, correct?
Incorrect. I willingly turned over my phone.
After you deleted your phone call logs, correct?
Absolutely not.
What date did you turn your phone over?
How do I get this straight?
Possibly February 3rd.
How many days after this incident was that?
You know what's very interesting about that, Maz?
Yep.
Guess what day? Karen Reed's vehicle was processed in the Sallyport?
Geez, I can't. A couple days after, right? I can't remember the day.
Well, it was February 3rd.
Okay, yeah, right. I missed.
Interesting.
I had someone distract. I apologize. I had someone
all
that
right.
kept calling me, so I just kind of got a little distracted there.
All right. That's
Yeah.
interesting, though, huh?
Yeah, that is
Just phone
interesting.
number on the
The dates
3rd.
kind of
Karen
convey.
Reed's
Yeah.
vehicle gets processed on the 3rd.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
4, 5.
So you had plenty of time to talk to that friends and family group and ultimately decide to delete your phone calls, correct?
Objection.
Karen
Sustained.
Reed's vehicle sat in that Sallyport.
Did you ever have any group
Or
chats
process.
with family members who are witnesses in this case?
Yes.
May I approach you on?
Yes.
Flip through those.
Yeah, that's actually a great point there, Jen Hoffa.
What's
Why
that?
didn't you identify John as a Leo to 911?
Right. Yeah. I mean, we've said that all along, too.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, we've argued that all along. That's one thing that's
Yeah.
totally pissed me off through all of this. You know, why is it just a man's down in the snow, guy down in
Yeah,
the snow?
right.
Why not
Right.
Officer John O'Keefe, my friend that I love, Officer John O'Keefe.
Yeah.
is down in the snow.
Well, JJ, of course. You know, they
JJ.
want to call him JJ.
JJ.
32 Fairview, not 34 as well.
Yeah, right. 32. Right.
Unreal.
Don't bring any attention to the house.
Hmm.
Look at
While
Lally.
Mr. Lally is looking through that packet, can I just ask to make sure the record is clear? Did you delete any of your calls before you turned your phone into law enforcement?
I spoke with the 2 officers that I handed my phone over to, and I asked if I could delete the personal conversations with my daughters. And they said absolutely yes, that I could.
So other than calls with your daughters that you deleted, did you delete any other calls on your phone at all? Ms.
There were
McCabe?
text messages. It was actually text messages with my daughters that I deleted, and that was all I deleted.
Did you delete any phone calls?
I do not recall deleting any phone calls at all. I would have no reason to delete anything.
So that's very different than I didn't delete any phone calls. I do not remember deleting phone calls, means you might have.
In day-to-day life, people delete things, but I do not recall deleting any phone calls.
In day-to-day life, did you delete?
Let me ask the chat this question. How often do you go on and delete things on your phone? I think I can probably say this. If I'm taking a photo and it doesn't line up with the composition I like, I'm probably going to delete it. or maybe I start a video and it didn't capture like, what I was trying to capture. But how often do you all delete text messages? And I mean, I can do this. I'll open up my text stream and just show you. Look that's my text stream. It's like I don't delete my text streams.
Right.
It's just insane.
Right. I don't remember the last time I've done that. It's been a long time.
Yeah, like you're out with some friends or whatever. You take a photo. You're out at a standout. You take a photo. You didn't like it. You delete it. The video. You delete it.
Right.
But rarely. I mean, I can open up my photos too, and there's thousands of them in there.
Yep.
How often are you really deleting?
But, in this time frame, they just happen to do a nice little cleansing of calls and text or whatever.
Exactly.
Jeez.
Any of the calls to John O'Keefe?
No.
Did you delete any of your calls with Nicole Albert?
No.
Did you delete any of your calls with Brian Albert?
No.
With Chris Albert?
No.
With Julie Albert?
No.
Colin Albert?
No.
Yes.
With any of the witnesses in this case, did you delete?
Were you in
any
Shawk and
calls
Horror
with
when you
Julie
deleted them?
Albert?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes. Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
I'm so pissed at this point.
Ms. McCabe, I'm handing you a packet of documents.
Yes. Yeah, Jody. I was going to say the only thing I deleted like voicemails. Yeah. Like I get them from
That's
CVS when my medication comes in. I just delete it,
It appears to be about 10 pages long. Do you recognize what's in those documents?
It's the deleted
Yes.
phone calls and text messages.
You indicated already that you were part of a group chat with certain members of your family and
It's weird
friends.
too.
Correct.
Did that group chat, I'm most interested in the group chat between yourself, Nicole Albert, Brian Albert, Matt McCabe, on or around that group chat starting on or around February 1st, 2022.
Okay.
Does that look like a true and
Exactly,
accurate
Jamie.
reflection of the text messages between, or certain of the text messages between and among that group?
Yes, the ones I've seen. Yes.
On February
Can you just
1st
tell me what page you're on? I'm sorry.
Of course, Your Honor.
The Bates stamp number?
2148.
Okay,
is where
thank
I'm
you.
going to start.
Thank you.
And they should be
Page 227, Your Honor.
Okay.
That
On
was
February
good.
1st, 2022, around 2:15 in the afternoon.
I'm sorry,
on this group
1222. I'm
chat,
sorry.
Did you receive a message from your husband on the group? This is on page 2148. And it should be the middle bubble.
Jen, you're on the wrong page.
Middle
That's
and
at
bottom
2148, not 227.
Quote, Julie said channel 4 is in DE. You see that?
Yes.
And the response from Matt McCabe is eating, I assume, quote, ask Chris to ask some questions.
Hmm.
Tell them the guy never went in the house, end quote.
There it
See
is,
that?
Naz.
Yes.
You look at the next page, the top,
Mhm.
149. There's a one-word answer from Brian Albert.
Mhm.
What is that answer?
Exactly.
Does it appear to you from this chat that Matt McCabe was directing witnesses, specifically Chris Albert, what to say to the news media?
Objection.
I'll allow that. Is that what you're seeing?
That is not how I would understand this.
He never went in that, tell them he never went in the house was the story that had been concocted between and among this group of people on this chat, correct?
Objection.
I'll allow that.
No. John never went in the house. It wasn't a story. It was the truth.
Real quick, I just want to do this. Laura, thank you so much for the $10 on Cash App. I appreciate that. Thank you.
And it is the truth.
I missed that.
He never went in that, tell them he never went in the house was the story that had been concocted between and among this group of people on this chat, correct?
Objection.
I'll allow that.
No.
Objection.
John never
Yeah.
went in the house. It wasn't a
Yes, he did.
story.
Yes, he
It
did.
was the truth. And it is the truth.
Yeah.
Apple Health
That's
data says
Just like she
otherwise.
said, I hit
Yeah.
it.
Say it to the jury.
Correct.
Karen Reed says otherwise.
So according to this chat, it
Dropped him
leads
off and he went inside the
at a
house.
very base level.
That's what
This
Karen
is
Reed
one
said.
witness telling another witness to give certain information to the media that could be useful to the group, correct? Tell them the guy never went in the house, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
Matt McCabe was directing Chris Albert. Chris Albert wasn't even at the house, was he?
Chris Albert was not at the house, no.
But this chat is Matt McCabe, your husband, telling Chris Albert, who was never at the house and would have no personal knowledge of what happened at the house, to specifically say, the guy never came in the house. The guy, by the way, being John.
John.
Right?
John, thanks for the 10 on Cash App. Appreciate that.
That's
Thank
what
you.
he wrote.
Does that sound to you a little bit like collusion?
Objection.
Sustained.
At some point, you sought out Carrie Roberts' cell phone number shortly after the 29th, or maybe on,
Right.
on the 29th.
Yeah.
You're right, Dub.
Correct?
Correct.
You didn't have her cell number in your phone?
No.
One of your primary concerns was to make sure that you got in contact with Carrie Roberts before the day's end, right?
I wanted to speak to Carrie as she was on her way to the hospital, and I wanted to check in on John.
That was
One
a
of your
Shawk
primary
Horrah.
concerns, Ms. McCabe, was that you wanted to make sure you got a hold of Carrie Roberts and had communication with her before the end of the day.
It had nothing to do with getting in touch with her by the end of the day. It was a friend reaching out, wondering how her friend was doing, who was just taken off the front lawn.
On the 29th.
Yes.
So before the end of the day, Ms. McCabe, you can do this all day long. Before the end of the day, you were trying to get a hold of Carrie Roberts, correct?
Immediately in the morning, I wanted to get in touch with her.
Right. So you sought out her phone number. First, you tried my client, Karen Reed, correct?
Correct.
But then you found another source for that information. Is that right?
Correct.
And you said just a second ago, you were claimed that you needed that information because you knew that she was on the way to see
one,
John
Kate.
O'Keefe's parents,
She was picking them up.
and you wanted to check on them.
Correct.
Misadventure, thank you for the
You've been friends
$2.
with the O'Keefe family for years, haven't you?
Correct.
So you didn't have a need to get Carrie Roberts' phone number, did you?
I wanted to speak with Carrie, see how she was doing. I was not going to call Peg.
You had her phone number, didn't you?
I do, yes.
So if you wanted to check on somebody, you could have just called her.
I was not going to call Peg O'Keefe on the way to see her son at the hospital.
Check on your friend. That was just too much.
I wanted to ask Carrie. I'm sure she was boggled down and probably did not want to speak with anyone. It was a simple thing. I made sure I got Carrie Roberts' number so I could check in and see how John was doing. Also, we had just been through an extremely traumatic event together.
Shocking.
There's nothing evil here.
Roberts' number.
There's nothing evil here.
Because you wanted to make sure.
I mean, listen to the disdain in her voice when she's giving this testimony. I mean, she's very confrontational. And to me, you know, if you're, I mean, literally, Alan Jackson's just asking her questions and she's being very confrontational. To me, that's telling me right there, you got something to hide and you're very angry that people are questioning you about the situation.
Now, she gave us a very sufficient baseline about 2 minutes ago in this video. So she actually had told the truth about something, which was when Chris Albert wasn't in the house.
Mm-hmm.
And when she was asked that question, if you look at her demeanor, it's very calm. It's very affirmative. It's Chris Albert was not in the house.
Mm.
That
Right.
means that's an example of her telling, you know, in my opinion, telling the truth. She's not testy. She's not defensive. She's not angry. She's not combative. She doesn't feel offended. But when she answers these questions, it's attitude. It's this argumentativeness.
Yeah.
It's this uneasiness, looking her head around, making facial expressions. When she answered the question about Chris Albert was not in the house, correct? Chris Albert was not in the house. Very
Right.
simply answered. That I talked about that. That's considered a baseline.
Yeah.
You know, and that's considered a baseline. And basically, what it is, it's an example of someone being in a calm demeanor, you know, and then basically answering a question like, "Oh, I can answer that. Chris Albert was not in the house."
Mhm.
Done. You know, with these other questions where he really starts to push her, that's that. Just as you said when you paused this and explained, that's when you see this behavior comes out, and it's fitting that she used the word evil, There was nothing
Right.
evil. Why do you feel a need to say that? Because again, defensiveness feels like she's on the line here for something suspicious, which,
Oh,
which
yeah.
she knows in her conscience, if she has one, that she that she knows that she's got to answer for that and fight her way out of that. And that's when you see her seething, looking at him, getting testy and all that. So that's just my particular perception of this
No, I love it.
on the stand. Yeah.
I love it. And I have to agree. I mean, it's just if you have nothing to hide, then you would be very forward and you wouldn't be this confrontational. And you're seeing she's very argumentative with Jackson. It's like, how dare you ask me these questions? That's what I'm getting. So, all right, we'll keep
You
playing.
control her story as she left your site, correct?
Absolutely not.
Did you take any steps whatsoever?
I just gave you a like
Any
two there,
steps
Brian.
whatsoever
Oh, thank you.
to influence
Try to
Gary
get to
Roberts'
1,000.
statements?
We can do it. There's
No.
over 1,000 people in here. Come on. It's free. Hit the button.
Because that would be collusion, wouldn't it?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you write a text
1,300
to the
in here.
group,
Let's
including Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, and Matt McCabe, where you informed them that, quote, and this is, Your Honor, on page 2158, where you informed them, quote, Carrie is here going over timeline, end quote.
Correct.
So you reported back to Brian, Nicole, and Matt that Carrie was where?
She came over my house.
And you two sat down and went over a, quote, timeline together.
Peggy spoke to Carrie.
Yes or no?
She's very
I didn't
confrontational.
ask
again.
about Peggy.
Well, that's where the timeline started at.
Did you ask Carrie, or did Carrie show up at your house and, quote unquote, go over a timeline with you?
Carrie showed up asking to sit down with me to do a timeline so we would remember everything that had happened.
You wanted to be super helpful about that, right?
Objection, Your Honor.
Ask
Yeah.
it differently.
Sure. You wanted to be
Super
helpful. to Carrie
helpful.
Roberts.
Yeah.
The two of us were trying to figure out what had happened to our friend.
And so you made
This is
Take a moment.
this is collusion.
Take a moment.
Yeah, this
That's
is
crazy.
collusion.
It's crazy.
It's
insane.
collusion. I mean, who
It's
does
right in
that?
front of our
Yeah,
eyes.
the-
Yeah.
We're in this situation. Quick, come to my house and let's sit down and write out a timeline. I mean, that's literally let's get our story straight so we're on the same page.
I can't say what I did when I was a kid, but I did something that was a little bit controversial and ended up being all right for me. And I was eventually considered the good guy and all everything. So something happened. I can still recap that story in detail to this day, and it happened probably 27 years ago, and I could still to this day recap the whole thing that happened. I was ultimately, fine. It was like there was some bad accusations against me, and then I was able to clear my name, which was good. It was nothing that ever went to a legal level. It was just general questioning, and I was just like, no, I had nothing to do with this. I wasn't even there, and I had left before something had apparently happened, and they had asked me some questions. So I'm like, no, I left like 3 minutes before something went down, and I was being asked questions about it. But I can still tell you like everything that led up to it, though. The confrontation that happened that day that I happened to just kind of see brewing, and I just left. But I can still remember that to this day in detail. And that's the way it is. So
I was a witness in an assault trial before. I actually sat on as a witness, and that was very interesting. So I have been on the witness stand before. Very interesting.
Right. Yeah.
All right, let's keep playing here. Look at her. That's a good pause. Look at this.
made sure that you created and drafted with Carrie Roberts a timeline, correct?
Exactly.
I didn't make sure of anything. She was the one that asked me to do it.
And not only did you create a timeline,
Shawk
you
Horrah.
then reported back to your group, Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, Matt McCabe, that she was creating this timeline with you on February 1st, 2022. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Why did you feel a need to create a timeline?
That's what I'm saying.
Like what did you feel like we were going to catch you in? That you would want to make sure that you had your story straight.
It's to get all the stories straight, so all lines up. They have the script. Here, Carrie, here's mine. This we'll hand these out. We'll Xerox them and give them to everybody in the group.
Instead of the song "I Need a Hero," it's "I Need a Timeline." I need a timeline by the end of the day.
Yeah, copy your guy
It's
5,000.
gotta be clear. It's gotta be concise.
No,
it's
you're
gotta
taking me
make
back
Karen
to
look guilty.
Short Circuit.
Da-da-da-da-da. Yeah.
Short Circuit.
Jeez.
Part 2, I think they put that song.
Unbelievable.
Wow, that's
It's
going
crazy.
back. All the lies play so differently watching it back, like rewatching a mystery movie. Lally comes off so worse a second time around. Yes.
And Short Circuit was an amazing movie. Johnny Five.
Yeah. Remember the second one when he went to New York?
Yeah, yeah.
And he
one's
turned
one
into
where
the
he has-
punk?
Yeah, the punk one. That's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, the punk
Yeah.
one. I was wondering which one that was, where he had the spiky hair
Yeah,
and
yeah,
everything. Yeah,
And they
That was-
speak pig Latin in it.
yeah.
Et gay ertzgay. And they're like, what? Et gay ertzgay. Get
Yeah.
scared. Yeah. Et gay ein bay imhe.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think I just dropped the new song. It's gonna be #1 tonight. I need a timeline. Dun, dun. It's gotta be clear and it's gotta be concise and it's gotta make Karen look guilty. I need a timeline.
I like it.
Yeah. Jeez. Unbelievable.
After you created or drafted
No
this
disassemble
timeline
Johnny
with
Five.
Carrie,
Yeah.
she actually sat for an
Johnny
interview
Five is alive.
Yeah.
with
Yep.
the police, did she not? That's not in the chats. I'm just asking. She sat down for an interview with the police.
Can you rewind that? I saw it.
Yeah. Oh.
Ryan Albert, Nicole Albert, Matt McCabe, that she was creating this timeline with you on February 1st, 2022. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Here it comes.
After you created or drafted this timeline with Carrie, she actually sat for an interview with the police, did she not? That's not in the chats. I'm just asking. She sat down for an interview with the police, didn't she?
When?
You tell me. That's my question.
I'm not sure of when you're talking about.
Oh my God.
Let's start over.
Yes.
After this timeline was created on February 1st,
Mhm.
at some point thereafter, Carrie Roberts conducted a formal interview with the police about this case, correct?
Do you have the report of that
Oh
date?
my God.
We're sort of bearing the lead. She did the interview in your living room.
Yeah, I'm like, she's looking like, huh? Yeah.
Right?
There was
Oh, here we go.
on Tuesday, 2 officers came to the house and she sat in the other room and
That's an
spoke with them.
interview.
So, using my question, she did the interview at your house.
Oh my God.
Oh, they came to my house to interview me, and she happened to be there. So they asked if they could speak with her also.
Okay. Did
Interview.
she or did she not do an interview at your house?
Did, yes.
That wasn't that hard.
I know. Jesus.
You were
Oh my
present for that
God.
interview, weren't you?
I was eating dinner.
You were present for the interview, Miss McCabe,
I was in the house, yes.
and you listened to that interview, didn't you?
No, I did not.
You made sure you gave Carrie Roberts everything she needed for that interview, correct? Quote, everything she might need for that interview, didn't you?
And where is this that you're quoting
I'm
from?
asking you.
Oh, I'm sorry. When you quoted, I thought it was in here. I apologize.
We'll get to it in a second. Did you tell her everything that you wanted her to say?
No, I did not.
Did you in
Can
any
you pause
way
this for a second?
attempt to influence
Yeah,
her
of
testimony
course.
before she gave?
Go for it.
How in the world did this jury not declare her not guilty on all 3 counts,
I know.
walking away like it was a 10-0 victory,
I
12-0 victory? It's insane.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you listen to this cross-examination, you have someone on edge. It's not like, they're able to say like, look, we didn't see anything. We were in, we were in the house and John never came. They keep it simple. They don't seem defensive at all, but she's so defensive.
Yeah.
I mean, you forget that it's Karen Reed who's on trial here, and you start to say to yourself, "Are these people on trial or what?" Because
Yeah.
it's just so. I remember Mark Betterow saying that repeatedly. It seems like they're the ones that are on the defense.
Yeah. It's insane that they didn't look at this and go, she's freaking lying. Lying on her teeth.
Gave that
Or her
interview in
tooth.
your living room.
Lying on her
Absolutely not. Carrie is her own person.
she's her
But
own
then you
whole.
did report her progress to the Albert and McCabe group in that group chat, didn't you?
Can you show me where, please?
Oh my God.
Yes,
Sure.
it's on your timeline on page 227.
Isn't it true that in a group text with Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, Matt McCabe, you wrote, and this is on page 2159,
On page
quote,
21.
and we handed
21,
Carrie,
21,
sorry,
27.
and handed phone to Carrie. You remember that?
I see that, yes.
And the very next text is from you telling the group she's telling him everything
Everything.
in all caps, 2 exclamation points.
Yes.
Look at her, yeah.
And then you went on to say at 2:55 p.m. at basically the same moment, quote, all this stuff, end quote. Correct?
Correct.
So when you said a couple of
Look at her
minutes ago,
glaring
you
at
weren't
him.
listening to what
Oh
she
my
was saying,
God.
that was a lie, wasn't it?
We're talking about 2 different interviews. I'm talking about when
This is rehearsed.
the officers came to my house and spoke to her there. You're saying that I handed the phone over, so that would be a different interview.
This is
This
rehearsed.
is on February 1st at 2:55. I wasn't there. You were there. She was in your house on February 1st giving an interview to the police, wasn't she?
One day she was there giving an interview to the police.
And while she was there,
But I do not believe it was at 2:55. It was later in the evening. So I think you might have 2 events confused.
so either way, whether she was on the phone with the police or sitting there in your living room with the
Naz is
police,
gonna
you were
lose it.
listening to her and reporting
exhausting.
back to the group. She's telling them everything.
The one, no, it's not correct.
The way
The
she
one
gets
that
caught in
she
the
did
lie,
with
and then
the,
she muddies the water to try to get it's she's like an off-road vehicle that's stuck in the mud, and it's doing donuts to try to get out of the ditch that it's stuck in. It's like, basically, we got you, surprised. Also, it's like, just trying to do everything she can to get out of there, and she muddies the water in the conversation to try to change the topic. Well, what you were talking about is different than what I'm talking about. Well, in fairness, you're supposed to answer the questions as they're asked, and it's just she's trying to find a way out. That's just the drift I get.
Yeah. It's just, there's no way out.
It's hard to sit here and believe this woman or take anything she says with any relative truthfulness. If I was had no knowledge of this case, and I saw this individual on the stand in a knowing nothing about it, I would sit there and say, what is up with this particular individual that's on the stand right now? Is she the one that's getting questioned for, is it's just, she's so intense, so hostile, so restless, so defensive that it's hard to take anything she says with any relative level of credibility.
No, I agree. I mean, just trying to look at this just in a non-objective way. I mean, if I was listening to this, I'm like, something's odd. Something's not jiving here. It's a little weird. And why is she so confrontational? Catherine, thank you so much for the $10 Canadian. I appreciate that super sticker. That was very nice of you. Thank you. Yeah, something's way off here. That's what I would be saying. All right, let's keep going.
police she did in the other room. And the one she did on the phone, I said, she's telling them everything.
I know.
Because
I know.
Carrie is an extremely blunt person, and she was giving personal feelings about the situation. And I was horrified by it.
To the police.
To the police.
And you're listening.
I heard a statement she said that horrified me.
And then you're reporting it back to the group, weren't you?
That one thing she stated, I reported back to the group, yes.
So you're listening in on a police interview, correct?
It was a phone call.
One side of it, right?
It was a phone call.
You're listening in on a police interview, one side of it, correct?
Correct.
You're eavesdropping on that interview, correct?
I'm sitting with her and she's taking the call.
And then you're reporting that interview back, or her success in that interview, in your mind, back to the group involving Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, and Matt McCabe. Isn't that what you're doing?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
Absolutely not. That is not how it went. I was horrified because Carrie's a blunt person, not
This
like
is
me.
not how this
and
works.
she had made a comment
Whatever
about
this isn't working for me. Boom. You know what movie that is, you're good.
Whatever this is, it's not working for me.
Yeah, that is not how this works. The Hangover, the wedding.
Oh,
reception
yes.
night. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is not how
yeah.
this works.
It's
Whatever
not
this
how-
isn't working for me.
Yep. The shock. She was in shock and horror.
Yeah,
Miss
I was in
Reed
shock
and
and
Mr.
horror.
O'Keefe's relationship. And I was shocked and
I was
horrified that she said
Shocked and
it the
horrified.
way
I mean,
that
shocked
she
and horrified.
did.
Who wouldn't be,
So
right?
shocked and horrified that
I said, oh my God, she's telling them everything.
Oh my
Okay.
God, she's telling him everything. The dramatics.
Yes.
you decided it was so important that you needed to report that back to Brian Albert and his friends.
Yeah.
I was
sorry, his family.
I was horrified.
So you reported that back.
Yes, I said she told them everything.
She's pissed that she's telling
When
him
you were first
everything. That's
confronted
why.
with these messages at a separate
What are
proceeding,
they gonna do? Snuff her out too? You think they probably would have snuffed her out if they had the chance, Maz?
I
Jeez.
don't know. I don't know.
in June of 2023, you claimed that you couldn't remember what that exchange was about, correct?
Correct.
And now you just all of a sudden have this newfound memory of exactly what that text message was referring to, correct?
Objection.
Why did you need a timeline?
Yes, because Kerry
Right.
Roberts said a statement and it jogged. I said, oh my God, that's what I meant when I said she said everything.
When did she say this statement?
Probably in the fall. She has made this statement a few times in reference to Karen.
You and Kerry Roberts are still
Yeah.
coordinating your statements together.
Oh, no, we're
Talking
not.
about it.
It's just an opinion she has of Miss Reed.
Oh,
Oh.
she was
sudden that
unobjective
became-
when she gave her opinion.
Oh. Okay. Now it comes out.
Or, quote, everything, all this stuff.
It didn't just become it. I forgot that I had written it. And one day Kerry made the statement. And
She's very
I'm
angry.
sure it happens to everyone. You forget something and then you're like, oh my God, that's what it was.
Well, I'm not sure that happens to everyone.
Objection.
Sustained.
Let me ask you a different question. When you were asked under oath
She is.
a year
Yeah.
ago,
Mhm.
when it was things were fresher in your mind, you
Alan
were asked
Jackson.
specifically what what you were referring to, and your answer was, I have no idea, correct?
Correct.
Because you didn't want to tell them that you had coordinated your statement with Kerry Roberts. Isn't that right?
No, that is not right. I did not remember what it was.
Went on to be asked specifically, do you know who you were referring to? And you said, maybe Kerry, maybe. I'm talking to Kerry. And the question was, but you don't recall this text? And your answer was, I don't remember. That's what you testified to a year ago, correct?
Correct.
Yeah,
But
right,
now
Katie.
you're talking
All
about
the
some
police.
memory of a disparaging comment that Kerry Roberts has about my client. And that's the everything in your mind.
Yes, the things that she was saying.
What the hell is Auntie Bev doing
Quite
in the
obviously,
background right there? What is spinning
That's what
around
you were
back there in the
referring
upper
to in
left-hand
that
corner?
text
But she's-
in real time, Ms.
Used to
McCabe.
spin her glasses like this.
Yeah.
Kerry
yeah.
Roberts
Very
was telling the
rude.
police,
Yeah.
quote, everything that you had laid out for her in this timeline meeting you had with her, correct?
Objection.
So it's sustained as to that form. You can ask that question in a proper way.
The everything you referred to in that text in real time was what you had worked out with Kerry in that timeline meeting.
The timeline.
That was the everything. you
Look
were
at she's
referring
looking
to,
now.
correct?
All right. How do I
Incorrect. We never worked together to come up with a story. We have the facts, and the everything was a comment about your client.
You
Oh.
went on in your group chat
Audrey,
with
thank you
Brian
so
Albert,
much.
Nicole
$5
Albert,
super
Matt
sticker.
McCabe to give running updates about whether or not Kerry Roberts was actually
Yeah, that's
following
not-
the script.
That's
correct?
pretty interesting. Isn't this here?
Incorrect. There was no script.
167.
I like how Jackson just keeps moving on. Like,
You know what? I keep
Texted
pausing
the
for
group.
just a second there. So
Right.
that's a great observation that you're making, because that's what I've been observing, is that when you're a defense attorney and you have a pretty much at this point a hostile witness that is no less than borderline hostile at this particular point, or argumentative, you want to keep them going. It's kind of like Tom Cruise against Jack Nicholson and A Few Good Men. You kind of keep pouring it on and just kind of keep the pressure. It's like a full court press defense in basketball. Just keep the pressure on, keep the pressure, keep them on edge. Don't let them stay. It's like when, a quarterback is in the pocket in football, you
Right.
blitz them from both linebackers and the front four and all that stuff, and just keep them uncomfortable in the pocket and just try to create a pressure that's going to force them to make a mistake or a misstep or what have you.
right. No, I agree. It's a good analysis.
Yep.
Excellent.
Someone said the
And,
timeline was the script.
Sitting
I
separate,
agree.
end quote, correct?
Yes.
Sounds like Matt McCabe is reporting back to Brian Albert following your
The way he
instructions
words
for
that.
sitting separate.
Yeah, so good.
Objection.
Sustained.
1 minute later, Brian Albert had a one-word response to the Brian sitting separate, correct?
Yes.
What was that one-word response?
Okay.
So it sounded like he was giving his approval for where people were situated in that meeting, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
At page
Princess
2168, 515.
It's very hard to just look at two texts and try to understand what the context is.
How is that hard? You were part of it. You were part of these text messages. John, my Aussie friend, checking in with a $10 super sticker. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you. John's
Okay, if
always
you don't
here.
understand
Right
the
after
question that I have, just let me know. But otherwise, let me ask a question.
AT said she loves rewatching.
21.
All right, good. Well,
I'm sorry,
listen to the
on
audience.
page 2168, at 515, you wrote the group, quote, "You listening?" Correct?
Yes.
And at the same time, 515, you then wrote, "Cops here again," end quote, correct?
Correct.
That was in reference to the police coming over to your house to further interview Carrie Roberts, wasn't it?
That was when they came to talk to me.
And Carrie Roberts was there,
Was
correct?
at my house, correct?
And a few minutes later at 5:23, Nicole Albert texts, "Call us after," correct?
Correct.
And a few minutes after that, Matt McCabe texts, quote, "This girl could write a book,
Oh,
dot,
God.
dot, dot, nonstop," correct?
Correct.
Meaning, shut her
So
up.
obviously Matt McCabe, along with you, was listening to Carrie Roberts give her interview.
Yeah, they're
We
freaking
were
out.
sitting in the kitchen eating dinner with our children, and Carrie Roberts was in a different room, but she was going on and on and on
How do you know?
as she does because they were in the other room.
And you could listen.
I could hear voices.
You could hear her interview with the police.
Did not hear her interview. I could hear them talking, but I was sitting at a table with my children eating dinner, getting ready to go to a basketball game.
Did you pray before the meal and sing
You
Kumbaya
even
after the
responded
meal?
to Matt McCabe.
The reason why I say that is just because of being smart
love
aleck
it.
about it. It was basically that she just makes them seem so wonderful. You know, they're all sitting at the table having dinner. Everything's wonderful.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just, oh my goodness.
Yeah, she's just a liar. Her demon eyes right there, right now. Holy
Jesus.
smokes, that's crazy. Good pause. Your eyes, freaky.
Yes.
And then you responded about this interview.
You didn't.
You just testified under oath and under penalty of perjury, not hearing anything about, just hearing voices. Your next text was, quote, "She is telling them everything,"
Yes.
end quote. Correct?
Yes.
So what you said just a few minutes ago about not knowing what she was saying, I could just hear voices. That was a lie.
It wasn't.
Objection.
Sustained.
And a couple of seconds later, Nicole Albert responds, one word. What was her response?
Good.
So in order, those texts say, "You listening?" You say, "You listening?"
Objection, Your Honor.
The objection sustained.
At the end of the day, you were eavesdropping on an interview that Carrie Roberts was having with law enforcement in their official capacity, weren't you?
No, I was sitting eating dinner, and some of the things, obviously, I overheard, but I was not
Some of the things
even.
you overheard.
I'm saying
What is she?
there's a
so
possibility
upset about?
if I'm sitting in this room eating dinner and someone's in another room talking, you can hear bits and pieces. Was I eavesdropping? No. Is
She
there
heard
some
it.
big cover-up story? No.
Well, why, Ms. McCabe, does your testimony keep evolving? A second ago, you said, you told this jury,
Couldn't hear
you
anything.
said, I couldn't hear a thing. All I
Now
could
you
hear was
said bits and
voices, like
pieces.
muffled voices from the other room. She was going on and on about something.
Yeah.
And then when I confronted you with the text message where you said, she's telling them everything, now it's, well, I may have heard a couple of things. Which is it?
No, she was going on and on and on like she does.
And you were
She
listening
does. You know,
on
Carrie.
and on and
You know,
on.
Carrie.
Yeah, you know.
I was
Carrie,
probably
you
hearing
know?
bits
Yeah,
and pieces.
listen, when she talks, Maz, she just goes on and on and on. I mean, come on. I mean, it really is. When you go through this again, and you know, I've only watched it once.
Yeah.
This is the second time I've gone through it. You really do pick up on a lot of
Oh
stuff.
yeah. Oh
I mean,
yeah.
you do. And I think
Yeah.
this is healthy. Just to let everybody know, I think what we're going to do is we will go to the completion of this tonight, and we'll do a part 3 tomorrow because it is getting late. I've had Maz laid up on the panel. But we'll finish the rest of this, and then maybe sometime this week we'll do part 3, which would be the next day. I think Jen sat up for about another hour on the next day. And then we'll complete that. We'll break it down to a 3-part series. So Maz, again, thank you so much for being here. You've been a rock star on the channel. I love having you over here and your insight and your commentary, and definitely a friend of the show. We're at 665 likes. Let's get to 1,000 before we head out. I mean, come on. We got like another 30 minutes. We should be good here. We're at 1,400 people in the chat. If 400 of you that haven't smashed the like button already would get us to 1,000 likes, I really, really would love that. So smash the like button for me. If you don't do it for me, at least do it for Mazza. You got to do it for Matt. I mean, he called into the Canton Select Board meeting tonight. That was awesome.
That's not true. That was Clyde Duckworth.
Yeah, it was Clyde Duckworth. But yeah, just do it for Clyde. Do it for Clyde.
Yeah, do it for Clyde. Yeah.
Clyde.
The 1990s Trailblazers had a guy, Clyde Drexler and Kevin Duckworth on the team.
Yep. Clyde Drexler. Yep.
Yeah.
Phenomenal basketball player. His dunks were awesome.
Yeah. I was a huge fan of him when I was a kid, when he was on the Rockets in 95. Oh, I love that Rocket. I was never a fan of I actually rooted for the Knicks in 94 over the Rockets, but then in 95, it was like 2 of my favorite teams in the NBA, head-to-head Rockets Magic. It was Shaq and Penny versus Clyde and Hakeem. That was an amazing fun. It was a sweep, but the games were great. So.
I was a Bulls guy back in the day. So you had Kerr, you had Jordan, you had Pippen, Cartwright. That was the team. I mean, there was no one beating those teams. And if anybody hasn't had the chance and you're a basketball fan, I encourage you all, if you haven't seen it yet, go watch the Jordan series. I think it's 6 parts to it. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, that was amazing. I've been watching that a little bit every night, actually. I watch like 10 minutes of it, 20 minutes, 15 minutes at the very end of every night, just before I go to bed. It's kind of close my night. I was finishing up with the 96 Bulls. Now, I'll tell you, when I was a kid, just to make this quick, I was probably a fan of about Celtics first, of course, but I was probably a fan of about like 25 teams in that league at one point. I just watched every game I could and just loved the league so much back then.
I remember my dad taking me to the old Boston Garden when the Larry Bird team was together. And I remember going to a couple of those games as a very small kid. And I remember they had these, my grandfather used to collect, because my grandfather was a heavy smoker, and he used to take the barcodes off was it that? No, there was a Celtics scratch ticket, and I think it was like cash for Celtics or Celtics for cash, whatever it may be. And if you didn't win a ticket, if you collected a certain amount of them, say like 20 of them, you would mail them into like the Boston Garden, and they would send you like this T-shirt, and it was like a what do they call those? Caricatures. Of the team, and it was pretty cool. And I had that, the Celtics cash.
The Last Dance, that was the name of the documentary. The Last Dance.
Last Dance. Green Stuff. There it is. Yes, see, Mike knows what it was. Green Stuff. Yep. I knew I wasn't crazy. Yeah. I knew I wasn't crazy. All right, let's finish up. Jen McCabe. She was just listening, just heard bits and pieces of Kerry's testimony, because Kerry always talks.
Huge Reggie Miller fan, Sarah. I have his jersey still from when I was a kid.
Yeah, green.
Why was it so important to report back to the group?
You guys are all smart as a
Pippen jersey too.
That Kerry Roberts was saying, quote, everything.
Objection.
I'll allow it.
We had both lost our friend. Kerry Roberts was in shock, as was I in shock. The two of us had all this information that just kept coming back to us. And it's terrifying when you go through an experience and you're in shock. And Kerry was remembering things. I was remembering things. So I was happy
Yes,
for
the
her
gas
that
station
she was
glass.
piecing
Yep.
it all together, and I had pieced it all together because at the end of the day, our friend was dead, and we were trying to figure out what had happened to him
Right.
together. There was
You
no
barely knew him.
direction. We were all trying to figure out what had happened because that's
There it
what you
is.
do when you lose somebody you love.
You
Were you
barely knew,
happy for
from what I
her,
understand.
Right.
or were you happy for you and Brian and Matt?
I mean, she's insinuating that basically she loves
For
him more
me-
than Karen. I'm not saying that's what she's saying, but to some degree, it can be interpreted that way. That she's basically saying, "Someone you love." Well, I mean, how old did you know him? You know, I mean, did you know how well did you guys really know this guy? I mean, did you hang out with him all the time? Or how
Right.
long have you known him? I mean, those are questions I ask. Jeez.
It's just real quick. I just got to show this real quick. I found the T-shirt. Check this out.
Oh, okay. I'm going
This
to
is-
it right now.
See
Yeah.
right here. Look at this.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah,
Oh,
I had
geez.
this T-shirt when I was a kid.
Is that Walton on it too?
Yeah,
Let's see. Ainge Bird, Dennis Johnson. That's
McHale.
Seasting, McHale. That's Seasting, McHale, and
Dennis
Parrish.
Johnson.
Yep.
Dennis Johnson.
Uh,
Jim
Se-
Paxson.
You know,
McHale.
Paxson was on the Celtics at one point. It was his brother, though. It was
Kevin McHale.
John Paxson. So he
Barrett-
was Jim
John
Paxson's brother.
Paxson. Yep, Jim
Yeah,
Paxson. This guy
Yeah,
right
John
here.
was Jim's brother, who was on the Bulls.
Yeah.
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to our regular scheduled program. I just like it was eating me up. I'm like, I gotta find this thing.
Yeah. That's all good.
But, I love
You know me, I
history.
can talk basketball all day.
Oh, I love that.
There was no conversation.
Got the story out that you're trying to get out from Carrie Roberts. correct?
Objection.
I'll allow that.
There is no story. There's facts and truth on this side. There's no story. The story that you've created is not the truth.
Did I create? I hit him, or did you?
That's fact.
A fact that conveniently you didn't mention.
John, thank you
in
so
your
much.
report.
$5.
Blank,
I need a poker stick if me and Maz
And
were
you're-
playing one-on-one.
right? That kind of fact.
Objection.
Is that right?
That is a fact I mentioned. So in some reports, it's there.
The fact is, you wanted to keep very close tabs on Carrie Roberts, didn't you?
No.
On January 29th,
Yes.
if you look on page 2223, did you text the group, quote, Carrie talked to cops and kept it simple, end quote.
Yes.
Okay, it's becoming a habit for you to keep tabs on Carrie Roberts, isn't it? In the
Objection.
System.
Objection.
Objection.
Objection. Objection.
You'll agree that over and over and over and over again, you're reporting to
Objection.
this tight group, Nicole, Brian Albert, your husband, how Carrie's doing in her stories to the police, aren't you? Over and over and over.
I am telling them what is going on. I wouldn't say it. Well, let's count them. Was there 4 of them? You're saying over and over and over and over. It's a bit extreme.
I see. So you take issue with the way that I phrased over and over and over.
Well, it's misleading, I believe.
I see. Okay. Well, let me see if I can try this in a non-misleading way. Mr. McCabe.
Okay.
So at least one of us. I'll withdraw. You consistently reported back to the group how Carrie Roberts was doing with the police, didn't you?
I would update them after Kerry saw and spoke to the police. Again, we were all trying to figure out what had happened to John.
There's yet another text from Brian's wife, Nicole, on January 29th, and this is on page 2226. And she says, quote, "We'll
Page
get more info
227.
tomorrow. Don't want to text about it," end quote. And then you texted, right, correct?
Correct.
What's that about?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
What is that about, Miss McCabe?
We decided that we would talk on the phone. My children look on my phone. Her children look on her phone. We were working with the police. I was sharing information and everything that had happened. We didn't want it to leave our little circle because we were trying to figure out what happened, and we're not going to go running around letting people see, oh my gosh, they think this might have happened or that might have happened. It was nothing more than let's not text about it.
So you wanted to keep it, in your words,
In the circle.
your little circle, correct?
Correct. I didn't want it all out there what we had thought had happened. I was going to let the
call me
police
on
do
my
their
cell
job.
phone.
So by definition, the info that Nicole Albert was talking about, that needed to be kept very tight, very secret, correct?
We needed the police to do their job. So we weren't going.
Texts, and Nicole wanted her
Just keep
texts,
talking
and the
through her.
group wanted their texts to be kept secret and private. Isn't that right?
Not secret and private. We just weren't going to communicate certain things over text.
Did you give, or did anybody give you
Amy.
any private information the next day on January 30th?
Did anyone give me private information?
I actually, I'm gonna defend Jen about one thing. I'm gonna defend Jen about one thing. I actually would argue that she probably was a.
I don't want to text about
Go
it.
ahead.
I would actually argue she was probably a pretty solid basketball coach, because anyone that's this intense and determined is probably going to push a team to victory pretty well. That's all I'm saying. You better get them out there and kick teams out.
Oh God, can you imagine that?
I'm not losing to Kerry Roberts' team.
Yeah, can you imagine her like yelling at her kids or her husband? Oh my God, devil eyes.
The team
I
went
told you to go out and take the f***ing trash out right now.
And Jessica, what are you doing?
Get
Put an
up
elbow
and
in her
do the dishes
face.
now, because I'm in shock and horror the way it looks in the kitchen.
The way you guys played today had me in shock and horror.
Oh man,
That was on the 29th.
take the
Right?
trash out like a horror
Did you
show in
get
here.
additional info on the 30th, the next day?
I have no idea.
Did anything significant happen on January 30th in connection with this case? Any meetings, any get-togethers, anything that you can think of?
I went to the O'Keefe's house.
Other than that, anything else?
On the way home, Kerry Roberts' daughter is good friends with Michael Lank. So we dropped her off at Michael Lank's house, and Mike's wife came out of the house. Him and Kerry are friends, and she, jumped in the car and was consoling Kerry and asks how the O'Keefes were doing. And, we talked to her.
So you pulled up to Michael Lank's house on the 30th. Oh. That's never been reported, has it?
Uh-oh.
I guess I never thought much of it.
Never thought about reporting the fact that one of the first responding officers on the case, working for Canton PD, which is completely off the case, you had a meeting with that was unreported the next day?
I didn't meet with Michael Lank.
I see. So you pulled up in the car. Tell me about that again. You pulled up in the car and what happened?
And Lex, her daughter, went into the house.
Okay. And you just drove away?
No. Michael's wife came out of the house.
Okay. And y'all had a conversation about what?
She got in the car, and her and Kerry are friends, and she was checking on Kerry and, just saying, oh my God, this is so crazy, just checking in on the O'Keefes.
How long did that take?
Well, Kerry's a talker, so could have been an hour.
Could have been an hour standing outside?
She just threw it in again. She's throwing her fucking friend under the bus because her friend told them everything. That's why she's mad.
And ladies and gentlemen, the Heath Ledger Joker is now here. Would you like to know which of them are squealers?
Oh my God.
Sitting in the car.
Sitting in the car on February 30th. Never came in the house?
Not February 30th.
I said February 30th. January 30th. Never went in the house?
I might have ran in to go to the bathroom.
It's the back end of a blizzard. It's freezing cold outside.
Mm-hmm.
Sitting in the car for an hour?
The car was running, Kerry, and they were talking. It's her friend.
Get it straight. Look at her.
Did you have any conversation before your testimony today with anybody about you going to Michael Lang's house on January 30th? Anybody?
Yes,
Tell me about that. Who was it and when?
it was a couple of weeks ago at the DA's office.
See, it's like she didn't find it important to talk about going over to Lank's house and sitting there for an hour and Kerry Roberts having this conversation, just like when she was talking to the grand jury and decided to not tell them about supposedly this white Jeep that she saw out front. But she tells it in this testimony in front of the jury that she saw a white Jeep.
No,
It's funny how she tells certain things and doesn't tell certain things, and then, you know, twist all that around. Interesting.
Use the story, does
DA's
circles.
office
Yeah,
interview
it's
with
crazy.
you,
It is.
correct?
Not an interview. They just explained this process.
I mean, a conversation. How about that?
Yes.
You met with folks at the DA's office. Who'd you meet with?
Mr. Lally, Miss McLaughlin, Steve Nelson, Trooper Brian Tully. I believe, and another woman, I can't remember her name, unfortunately.
Someone from the DA's office?
Yes.
Is she listed on the timeline by any chance?
Little odd, huh?
Yeah.
All those people had to be there.
Beelan?
No.
Lynn Beelan?
No, she's here today. She works with Steve Nelson.
But an employee of the DA's office?
Yes.
That sounds like a pretty big meeting.
Yeah, I'd say.
I wouldn't call it a big meeting. There was, 5 of them?
How long did you, 5 of them and then you? Right?
My daughter Allie came with me also.
The meeting's getting bigger. Anybody else?
No, we both went.
Was Allie in the room when you were, I was going to say interviewed, but you take issue with every word I use. When you were talked to by the DA?
Allie and I were both in the room when they went over everything, you know, how this all works, because this is all brand new to us. And then they asked me to leave the room.
You were about to say, and I lost the end of that sentence, when they received what?
I didn't mean the word received.
Did you receive anything?
No, I looked at my grand jury notes.
Now, at this meeting, was anybody taking notes?
No.
You have a bunch of lawyers and DAs, and nobody has a notepad in front of them? Like notes?
Sure.
I believe Mr. Lally had a number of folders on the table.
Taking notes in those?
I do not believe anyone was taking notes. It was a casual meeting to explain this process.
Was that meeting recorded in any way that you're aware of?
No.
How long did the meeting last?
Allie and I were probably in the room, I don't know, approximately 20 minutes. Then I left and they spoke with her. And then I went back in and they spoke with me.
How long did they speak with you?
Honestly, maybe half hour.
And during that half hour to an hour, did they go over with you what they expected your testimony to be?
They never spoke about what they expected my testimony to be. They just showed me some pictures that might be shown. I listened to the 911.
What pictures?
Just of the house and how I'd be asked to, show, okay, we're going to put a picture of the house and you'll have a laser.
Mr. McCabe, when we started this conversation, it was because you said, in answer to my question, was anything ever brought up to you about this meeting at Lank's house?
Mm-hmm.
You said yes.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously they did talk to you about your testimony. It wasn't just about the process, correct?
I was told, I asked.
Sorry, I heard noises in the building, and it's the cleaning guy. He comes here really late, and I always just go out to check because I'm at this time, and then the night in the building, I'm usually the only one here. I just want to make sure that there's no one like breaking in or anything. But
right, yeah.
Sorry about that.
What discovery had been turned
You get a
in
super chat
regard to
in
me.
the meantime.
Oh,
you wanted to prepare.
Let me just get to that really quick. Let's see. Was it Jeffrey? Jeffrey, thank you so much for the $4, $5. I appreciate that. Thank you. All right, thank you for letting me know about that.
To make sure that you knew what you might be asked on cross-examination, correct?
Catherine, real quick, says Jen, Chloe, A Man in the Snow, Officer John O'Keefe, Matt, the guy, Officer John O'Keefe. They distance themselves. Thanks from Canada. Yeah, that's a great observation. That's the thing, Man in the Snow, the guy, and that's been the game that they have played here because they know that John went into the house. I mean, it's been proven, and they don't want to be caught up in this. And if you've watched through this testimony, what is the thing that Jen started to do at the very beginning when Jackson was questioning her and knew that she wasn't going to be able to go down that road? She said, well, it was Trooper Proctor. Trooper Proctor was making the errors in the reports. That must have been Trooper Proctor's reporting. And then when that didn't work, what did she just do to her friend? Oh, well, it was Kerry. Kerry was talking. Kerry was the one that was talking. So she's trying to get all these tactics to push all the heat off her and put it on everybody else. And you saw that with Matt McCabe as well, too. I think I just missed another one here. Let's see. Jeffrey says, did anyone ask if it's normal for Brian Albert to hang out in your bedroom? Yeah, exactly. No, we've gone over all that. Thank you so much, though. All right.
I wanted to know what was coming. Yes.
And you knew that one of the things was coming after this meet. Well, let me ask it a different way. During this meeting, did Mr. Lally tell you one of the things that's going to be coming is you had an off-the-books meeting at Lank's house for 45 minutes?
Yeah, it's a little.
Tell you that?
No, that's not how I was told.
Did he tell you that the defense had uncovered a report that established that you were actually at Michael Lank's house for 45 minutes that had never been reported to the defense or the prosecution before the phone extraction had been done? Did he tell you that?
I was asked, oh, were you at Michael Lank's on the 30th?
So you've had a lot of time to come up with a story about
fan in the chat.
Why you were at Michael Lank's, correct?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
I didn't need time to make up a story because I have the truth of why we went.
And the truth, according to you, is you pulled up at Michael Lank's house. The first responding officer and friends of the Alberts had a meeting with him the next day that was never reported to anybody.
Put a little plug in there for myself in the comments, Brian.
Oh, yeah.
I
Just that
Of course, you can do anything you want.
out in the car.
To hide all my subscribers.
For 45 minutes to an hour. That's your story.
It's not a story. It's the truth. Carrie dropped her daughter off. The wife came out. Carrie is a talker. They started talking. A tragedy had happened the day before.
It is interesting.
Why would you be so afraid of her talking, though? What would she talk about? That would be such a threat to you or anybody else, that her being a talker would be such a thing to be so worried about.
Yeah, she's pissed. Well, because she talked. She took, remember in the text message, she's fucking telling him everything.
If your men were told that Private Santiago was not to be touched, and your men always follow your orders, Colonel Jessup,
yes.
and Private Santiago had nothing to be worried about at all.
Why would he need to be transferred off the base?
Wouldn't need to be, exactly. Wouldn't have needed to be transferred off the base.
Because you said that your men follow orders.
Yeah.
Do you need
very clear a moment
me
ago.
to read it back from the court reporter? Because I can.
I don't need it read back to me like I'm some kind of a child. Why the two orders, Colonel?
Why
Colonel,
the
wait
two
for an
orders?
answer. One of the
Why
greatest movies ever made.
It's so good. If you like trial law and you like this courtroom drama, that A Few Good Men, forget it.
Yeah.
I don't have to have it read back to me like I'm a child.
Yeah.
Don't worry, we'll get to the airmen in a second. But before we do that, and that's when he shit his pants because he's like,
he did. Yeah.
They're gonna verify the flight, and I'm screwed.
When Kevin Bacon talks to Tom Cruise after it's all over, what were Cecil O'Malley and I think we're going to talk about that they knew absolutely nothing. He just did that. Yep. He kept like referencing them in the background just to kind of dress it up.
We'll get to the airmen in a second.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's so good.
We should have won Best Picture, but the problem was that Unforgiven came out that same year, which was also one of the greatest movies ever.
That's Clint Eastwood, right?
Yeah, Clint Eastwood, Gene Hackman, Morgan Freeman. Two of the best movies came out that were both Best Picture worthy that same year. Probably the best Western, or one of the best Westerns, and probably the best courtroom drama ever made. Both came out that year. It was nuts.
Everybody in the chat's going, "Who ordered the code red? Who ordered the code red?"
Yeah.
You goddamn right I did. We don't do red.
Being charged with a crime.
Yep. This is funny. I'm going back to my base. Colonel, you're not going anywhere. Bailiffs, read him his rights.
Yep. Guards around the corner. Guard the colonel.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
fun.
Guard the colonel.
I'm going to rip off your head and spit down your throat. You mess with the wrong Marine.
See what it is. Who are you going to do it? He goes, then I suggest you pick up a weapon and get up on that wall. Who's going to do it? You, yeah. He goes, you, Caffey, you, Lieutenant Weinberg.
Yeah. You want me on that wall. You need me on
that wall.
Yeah. All you do is weaken a country today, son.
All right.
I'm an officer, an attorney, and an attorney. Yeah. And I'm not at your son. You're going to jail, you son.
I thought that line was a little forced, though. The whole SOB line was a little forced. That was supposed to be the crowd moment in the theater. Like, yeah, you got him.
Yeah.
A little forced, but God, it's so good. And it's one of those movies, though, when it comes on, you always stop and watch it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's so good. Joe, get in the car. I'm gonna put Jessup on the stand.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
But the day before, you have this.
No, I'm not gonna stop. Because you know why? This is my show, and we're hanging out with about 1,300 great people in this chat. And this is what we do. It's late at night, and we can do anything because it's my platform. So if you don't like it, doors to the left.
I have a quote for you, JDS, from Demi Moore and A Few Good Men. Move to reconsider. I strenuously object with your comment. Strenuously object.
You strenuously object?
Is that how it goes?
I like. She goes, "Are you drunk?" Yeah.
Are we or are we not the galactically stupid?
Oh, it's so good. God, it's so good.
Yeah.
Yep. Good
Nice
movie.
house. Nicole Albert says, we'll get more info tomorrow, meaning the very day you show up at Lank's house.
Again, I never spoke with Mike Lank at his house. It was not an off the books meeting. It was Kerry dropping her daughter at one of her good friends' house, whose husband happens to be a Canton cop. That is what it is. That is the truth.
A lot of coincidences.
Check.
Many.
Many
wonderful coincidences.
Yeah.
It's late at night. My comedy side's taken over.
Oh, I love it. I don't mind it.
Many wonderful.
It's our show tonight. We can do what we want. But don't tell me to stop on my platform, because you know what? I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to annoy you, so you unsubscribe.
By the way, what did Mr. Lally show you in respect of this issue about this meeting at Michael Lank's house?
He showed me nothing.
He just told you about it.
Brian Tully told me.
Okay, what did Mr. Tully tell you? Trooper Tully. What exactly did he tell you at this meeting about this Michael Lank issue?
He said, did you go to Michael Lank's on January 30th? And at first I said, no, I've never been to his house. And then I thought about it and I said, oh my gosh, yes, I did go there. And that was the extent of the conversation.
You said, yeah, I did go there, and he didn't ask a follow-up, like, what the heck were you doing at Michael Lank's house the day after this issue?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
He didn't ask a follow-up like that?
I do not believe he did.
So Trooper Tully, had you come down for an interview, he confronted you with a fact that had never been disclosed before, to wit, you showed up at Michael Lank's house, and when you said, hang on, I think your words were, oh my gosh, yeah, I think I did go there. And he didn't ask a follow-up question?
He was there. You're spinning all of this.
Ma'am, I do a lot of things.
Yeah.
I don't spin.
This is good.
There's a judge here to make sure that I don't spin. I'm asking you a question. It's very direct.
I do not believe he asked me a follow-up question.
So that was the end of that conversation about Michael Lank, correct?
Correct.
Mr. Lally didn't have any follow-up questions?
I don't believe Mr. Lally was in the room.
Who else? I thought you said Mr. Lally, Ms. McLaughlin.
They were. They might not have been in the room at that time.
I see. So Mr. Lally just happened to, just saunter out?
It was a different time.
So Mr. Lally was in and out of the conversation?
Mr. Lally was not there when this conversation happened.
Well, why is that?
Because
Why'd she
I
look
met
at
with
Lally?
Brian Tully and he was not there.
You see that? She looked at Lally.
Yeah.
I'll go back in a second here. Fancy RPG, $5 Canadian. My Canadian friends checking in tonight said, what if Proctor had to testify in the Karen Reed case as part of a plea deal to act as a witless blower? He is witless. Whistleblower in all of the scandals in the Mass State Police. I don't think so. I think it goes deeper than that. I think he would have had his opportunity way before he testified to flip, and he didn't. He went through with it. So I don't think so. What do you think, Maz?
It's it's hard to dismiss or believe almost anything, but I would say this: that is in play. That is something. Yeah, well, what if he had to testify in a Karen Reed case as a part of a plea deal to act as a witness? That could be possible.
So what? To draw all these other people out?
That could be. I mean, they might have told him to go in a particular scenario that's being suggested. It's not in the realm of possibility that if he had already flipped, that they would want him to kind of keep up appearances.
But I
don't believe it's probable, but I believe it could be possible.
Yeah, I'm saying, why would you throw yourself out like that? You're going to be known as a son of a bitch the rest of your life, a misogynist, piece of trash, pig.
Yeah.
You're going to lose your job. Why? Well, maybe. I mean, maybe they're secretly paying him behind our backs.
Well, that's what I mean. If there was some kind of, it's like Sean on the Gulf said. Sean McDonough said, the person who basically flips first, and makes the deal gets all the deals. They get all the stuff, and it would be in his
Brian Higgins.
And the thing about him is, if you look at Proctor's involvement in this, it's not on the murdering side of it. It's just essentially he covered everything up. So, realistically, if he wanted to just take the easy way out and say, you know what, you got me, I messed up, I fibbed this whole crime scene, I did all this stuff, I probably messed up, I know I've been caught, I might as well just, I'm not saying, like I said, I'm not saying it's probable,
right.
I don't think there's a high percentage chance that this has actually happened, but I do think it is a possibility that may not necessarily be something I could outright dismiss without thinking that there was at least a window of chance that could be possible. That's my frame of thought on that. Yeah.
Slim window.
Yeah. I'd say less than 10%.
Yeah.
No.
He's a state trooper interviewing a witness, and
he was.
Objection.
Sustained.
Objection. Sustained.
The same report that has you at Michael Lang's house also has you picking up Nicole Albert going by 34 Fairview.
Shout out to Amy. Thank you, Amy.
Before you went to Michael Lang's house. You aware of that?
We did not pick up Nicole Albert.
So you went by 34 Fairview, then diverted, and right after you went by 34 Fairview, went directly over to Michael Lang's house.
Oh, Susie, thank you.
What was the reason you stopped by 34 Fairview first?
We didn't stop by. Maybe Carrie slowed down, but we did not stop by 34.
So you did a drive-by 34 Fairview for giggles? What?
No, that's how we get to Michael Lang's house.
If the report shows that you actually stopped at 34 Fairview and then went to Michael Lang's house, would we have another oh my gosh moment?
Nope, no oh my gosh moment. We did not pick up Nicole Albert.
Did anybody else go with you over to Michael Lang's house?
No, it was Carrie, myself, and her daughter.
Your Honor, maybe briefly.
Okay.
She's like fried, man, mentally fried right now. I mean, she's been up there. I mean, gosh, it's 4 hours, I think.
Yeah.
If you all can do me a favor before we come back here, we're very, very, very close to getting to 1,000 likes tonight. If you haven't smashed that like button, it's free. Smash that down below. And if you're not following this gentleman below me on YouTube, you can look him up. It's Mazza Media. And I'd like to get him to 10,000 subscribers. You're climbing the ladder there, buddy. Where are you at currently?
Let's get the exact number. Let's see. That was at 8,400 something.
I'm
at 8,454 as of right this moment.
Yeah. So if what, 1,000 of you in this room tonight are not subscribed to Maz.
Jers, we're
Go
going to
there,
try and
that'll
go
get 'em
right up to 1
90,
o'clock.
400.
Okay.
Nancy, thank you so much for becoming a new YouTube member. Thank you, Miss Lily. Well, we love having you
Ms.
here.
McCabe, we've talked in some detail about your calls with John O'Keefe on the morning of January 29th. Do you recall that
Yes.
conversation? I want to focus your attention on or about, or at or about 12:14 a.m., moving up to about 12:50 a.m. You have that time in mind?
Yes.
You've seen the celebrate extraction from John O'Keefe's phone, which Mr. Lally showed you the other day, correct?
Correct.
And you went through the series of phone calls that were made and that appear on his extraction report, correct?
Correct.
I just want to run through those time-wise.
Leslie,
very
thank you for the
quickly, just to
$10
orient you,
on
if I can,
Venmo.
and then I'll ask you some specific questions about it. There was a call at 12:14 a.m., correct?
Correct.
That was a call that you indicated was answered. You had a conversation with Mr. O'Keefe.
Correct.
There was a call at 12:18 and 47 seconds. That call also was answered by you. John O'Keefe made that phone call, correct?
Correct.
Then there's the 12:29 and 44 second call that you indicated was not answered.
Correct.
And that was a call to you, from you to him.
Correct.
There was a 12:41 call from you to John O'Keefe, correct? That was,
Correct.
there was a 12:41 and 54 second call from you to him. Is that right?
Correct.
There was a 12:43 and 19 second call from you to him.
The whole building just shake.
Correct.
That was weird.
12:46
For the
Yeah.
cooling system.
and 16 seconds
That's weird.
from you to
I was
him.
like, what the hell is that?
12:47 and
Probably the
52
heating
seconds
system,
from
Yeah,
you
it's
to
probably
him.
heating of the cooling
Correct.
system. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
12:50 and 37 seconds from you to him, correct?
Correct.
You saw in his extraction report that all of those calls after 12:18 were missed calls, correct?
In his report that you showed me?
Correct. In other words, the only two calls that were answered were the 12:14 and 12:18. Everything else was a missed call.
I believe so. I would have to refer to it again because I've seen so many reports.
And Ms. McCabe, according to the extraction reports that you've seen this morning, comparing yours to his, every single one of those calls was deleted off your phone, correct? According to the reports.
According to that report, yes.
Let me ask you another question. Have you ever misplaced your phone?
Yes.
Just in life, everybody does it, right?
Yes.
What's one of the first things you do if you're with your daughter or your husband or a friend and you're in your house and you misplace your phone? What do you do?
Oh, I'll ask them to call my phone.
Even over and over and over, right?
Correct.
Could be as many as 5, 6, 7 times.
Usually I hear it the first or second time.
You're looking for a buzz or a ring, isn't that right?
Correct.
And you might do that if you're searching for a missing phone, correct?
Correct.
With
In
regard
short,
to
did you keep calling his
calls that were
phone
deleted on
because-
your phone, you were asked about this under oath at another proceeding, weren't you?
Correct.
And you claimed at another proceeding that you had an explanation for all these missed calls, starting at 12:29, 12:41, 12:41, 12:43, 12:46, 12:47, 12:50. You have an explanation for that, right?
Can I see the report?
Oh my God! Of course she needs to
I'm
see it.
asking you about your prior testimony.
And I'm asking,
About these calls.
yes, I'm asking, can I see it, please?
Oh, I'm
asking
sorry.
you
Yeah, you're in charge.
At your other at this other
Right.
proceeding, which
Mhm.
you were under oath,
Yes.
you explained that these calls were what? These missed calls, incessant missed calls. What were they? You used a word. Matter of fact, 2 words.
Oh, hey, Mizzy, how
I
are
believe
you?
I used the word butt
Late
dials.
night. I think Nurse Kim's in here too.
You claimed
Yeah, I
that
think it's
every one
our,
of these calls
Oh.
was a butt dial.
Well, welcome
right?
in, everybody.
Yes.
So according to you, you literally
I'm gonna
butt
give
dialed
Mizzy a wrench. Mizzy doesn't have a wrench.
John O'Keefe's phone 6 times in the span of 19 minutes. Is that right?
I don't remember making any
Mm-hmm.
of those calls. So my assumption is I put my phone in my back pocket.
Well, there's
And that was it.
Mizzy to the moderators. Welcome to the wrenches.
When you dial someone by mistake, you hit a button, set your phone down, the phone has to be open. You'll agree with that, right?
Correct.
Can't be locked, because it takes several iterations of movement to get a phone open, Face ID or password, right?
Correct.
So when you hit the button by mistake, walk away, that's a butt dial. People call butt dials. What happens with the call?
I assume it goes to voicemail.
It's a good assumption, because that's exactly what it
Ding,
does,
ding,
isn't it?
ding, ding. Tell her what you want. There you go. Yeah, Junior is all queued up for that. I like it. That's all.
What's that?
You had a sound effect all queued up for that. I like it.
Yeah. Miss Lily, $10 says, I will always back the blue when the blue back the truth. I believe Karen Reed is innocent and pray for justice for John O'Keefe. Thank you so much. We do as well. That's why we do these, and that's why we do these recaps, and we support Karen and do everything we can here. So we got about another 4 minutes or so in this live tonight. We'll do I'll probably end up doing the other piece of the testimony the next day, sometime this week, as a part 3. Again, I want to thank Mazza for being here, all the subscribers that have come in. And if we can get to 1,000 likes before we leave, that'd be great. I know everybody goes, you know anything about likes? Well, the reason is YouTube likes and likes the interaction on the videos, and it helps push it out further into the algorithm. So, and if you're not subscribed to that guy down there, Mazza Media on YouTube, look him up. He's very active on X as well, Mazza Media. You can look him up and just look for that logo that's right behind him, and you'll know you're in the right place. All right, 4 more minutes. Let's play this and wrap it up.
A lot of years, right?
Yes.
It rings and rings and rings until it goes to voicemail.
Correct.
So in order to hang up that butt dial, you have to interact with that phone yet again, don't you?
Yes.
So if you had 6 butt dials, 7, I think it's 7 butt dials, you'd not only have to interact with the phone once to butt dial John, you'd then have to interact with it every single time to turn off that phone ringer so it doesn't go to voicemail, wouldn't you?
I suppose.
Which makes 14 interfaces with that phone over the course of 19 minutes. Is that right?
Yep.
I mean, I guess I don't have it all right in front of me, but
It's a
there were also
reply.
text messages I was sending. So again, maybe I said, oh, shoot, I called them, and then I turned it off.
But your claim is you don't remember those incessant butt dials and those incessant hangups at all, correct?
I honestly don't.
So you would have had to forget that you interacted with, by the way, you'll agree that the phone extraction shows that John O'Keefe got no voicemails from you, right?
I didn't look, but
Butt playing game.
So that means that you would have had to interact with that phone 14 times
That's great.
over the course of
A lot of
19
butt play
minutes
going on in Canton.
at the exact
Oh,
time
boy.
frame.
I don't want to be involved in that. I'll just be honest with you.
Suggests John O'Keefe lost his life.
Objection.
Sustained. You can ask that differently, and this will be your last question for today,
Oh.
please.
Yes, Your Honor. The period between 1229 and 1250,
So
which
last
is the
question.
exact period that you were, quote, butt dialing John multiple times. That's also the exact period that John O'Keefe was rendered incapacitated. Isn't that right?
Objection.
That's sustained. We'll start up again tomorrow, okay?
All right.
All right, folks, so I'm going to want to stay there and walk out with him. Thank you.
thank you.
All right, so jurors.
Party on,
please do
Wayne.
not
Party
discuss
on,
this
Garth.
case with any-
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Oh boy.
Mazza. We had it. We went long, like wow, God, like 5 hours, right?
45. Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. 7 o'clock to
7
10:45. Yeah. Yeah. I think I've been on since like quarter. I think we started up at like quarter of. Actually, I think we started
Yeah.
at 6:45. Which yeah. So 4 hours. Yeah.
You're a rock star, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you. You are too. Great show you run there, and your studio is awesome. I love it.
Listen, we're just trying to get to the truth here and keep it
Right. Yeah.
keep it going. And like I said, we are the creators. I guess we are the performers. We're the people that put these shows together. But really, the ones that make it go, and I've said this all along, day one on my YouTube channel, I did my first YouTube live. The audience is what keeps these channels alive. If you all are not here helping and supporting, coming into these lives, watching the commentary or the material that we bring forward, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So we are very, very appreciative of all of you. I just actually sent a members only video out last night. If you're a member over there, make sure to go over and watch that video. It's a special tribute to my members. And, I appreciate it. And Maz, like I said, I appreciate you as a person, your friendship, your commentary. You're a solid guy, honest guy, you have integrity. And, like I said, you're always welcome here on the channel. So
Likewise. Appreciate you having me on 2 shows tonight. 4 hours, 2 shows. So a great night. So shout out to Clyde Ducksworth. What a great call he had tonight. Great job. Great job. Bud.
And if you just come in late and you're coming on the back end of this, go all the way to the beginning of the stream right now. There is some new Brian Higgins information out there, and you're going to want to watch that at the beginning of this live. Maybe I'll cut it down into a little cut video and drop it tomorrow. So real quick, Kat Randall, thank you for the 1 gifted membership. I appreciate that. All right, let's let this man get some sleep over here. I'm going to get out of the studio in about a half an hour and go home. I got a few things I need to do. I love all of you, and I think maybe sometime in the next couple of weeks, I think Maz is going to join me live in studio again.
Yeah, we'll do another studio show for sure.
Yeah, we'll have him come down and hang out. All right, everybody. Thank you for all being here. We'll do part 3 soon. I'll get it lined up this week, and I'll let everybody know. Everybody have a good night. Take care. Bye-bye.